There you go. Thanks. Thanks, Ron. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Lawrence Real, and I'm calling the Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 meeting to order. The time is approximately 6 o'clock in the afternoon. This meeting is streamed on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance is listed on the website and on page 5 of the meeting packet. I would like to state, as required by the New Mexico State Statutes 1978, Section 10-15-1, Section J of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, that the matters discussed in the closed session was limited only to what was specified in the notice, pursuant to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1, H8, discussions of real property and water rights were before the full board, if you will, as an administrative closed session. I would like now to defer to our clerk to give further directions as it relates to public comment, et cetera.
Thank you, Mayor. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting either by Zoom meeting link or via live stream. The meeting is being recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Trustee Benavides?
Here.
Trustee Kiefer? Here. Trustee Ranovich?
Here.
Trustee Rynell?
Here.
Thank you very much. If all would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It seems like it's been a while since we've met for some reason. Maybe it has. Anyway, we'd now like to move to item number 4. Please, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
You have a second?
Second.
Been moved in second. All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. General public comment, item 5. Only those participants who have signed up prior to the meeting can speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda under public comment and will be given 3 minutes. To be fair to others waiting to speak, a timekeeper will make an announcement when the allotted time is up. Therefore, it is important to keep your comments short and plan on making your points as quickly as possible. No action can occur on these items. If you have questions, please feel free to contact the city staff during business hours. Danielle, would you please proceed by calling up the individuals that have signed up for general public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Our first individual is Catherine McGill. If you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Catherine McGill.
I know Catherine, I don't see her.
Our next individual is Ms. Nancy Nangeroni.
Hi, Nancy Nangeroni, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank George for his kind words. I think it was last meeting or whatever about my road owner comfort business that I've been working on. And that's why you haven't seen much of me lately. It's been keeping me very busy. And I really appreciate the hard work you guys have done. I was looking through all the edits that were made in the ordinances, and I didn't even get to read it all. But I really do appreciate your hard work. I was struck in reading the agenda by the presence of a number of economic development initiatives, but no preservation-oriented initiatives. And I just wanted to call our attention to the mission of our village, which is the preservation of this beautiful space that we live in. And I know that you all have that in your minds. I know that that's there for all of you, but I just want to bring it up to the front of our consciousness again. As we think about economic development, I worry that development means growth, and growth means a diminishing of the beauty, the natural beauty of our village. And so I just want to leave you with that. And thank you again for your hard work. I appreciate you all serving as trustees and as a mayor. It's wonderful to have your service. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, congratulations from all of us for your fine work.
Thank you, Ms. Gordine McKenzie.
Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail Northwest. I certainly echo what Nancy just said, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing. I've been thinking about, why is Santa Fe the most popular city? What is it that draws people to Santa Fe? And a lot of it is the architectural and the historical and the cultural values that Santa Fe has. And I'm thinking about so many of our meetings focus on development and approving development, and I'm not against sustainable development, and I certainly support Main Street. But I've been thinking, what is unique about our village? We know that in terms of agriculture, but I've also been looking at neighborhoods, and in certain neighborhoods where new development has occurred, when I take my walks on the ditch, I kind of veer into those neighborhoods, and I see that that new development has nothing to do with the character of the village. And I'm not suggesting we have a total uniform architectural guideline, but you get a sense of the character of the village, and then all of a sudden you get something popping up that couldn't be more juxtaposed. And I shirk to mention streets like Bledsoe and Green Valley. For example, our houses don't have to look alike. There are a lot of unique structures in the village, but also, is there a way that we could have an ordinance that says developers look around at the character of the village and see that there are setbacks and there are certain things in the village that make our village unique? And what I would like to see is less gated communities and more things that continue to make our village unique. We all know we have a lack of water and we can't just keep developing, but how can we make our village unique, make it a destination point, have people come in, spend their money, and then go home. I wish that we could think of things like that, and maybe it requires looking at our master plan and really seeing where there are loopholes in the master plan that allow for some of the things in our village that make it not a village anymore. But thank you for the work that you do, and I hope we can all work together on something like that.
Thank you. I'm going to call Catherine McGill. Okay, sorry, with that, Mayor and trustees, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much, Danielle. All right, well, now we'll move to item 6, approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of the July 7, 2025 special meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 7th, 2025 special meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved in second. Any questions? Any comments on the minutes? If seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll go item B, minutes, July 15th, 2025 regular meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved in second. Any corrections, changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes of July 15th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now move on to old business. Item A, approval of an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, between the County of Bernalillo and the Village of Los Ranchos for animal care services to include enforcement of the Animal Care Code. Before we go to Mr. Avila, do we have a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve that the village uses Bernalillo County services to supplement our needs in animal control.
Do we?
Mayor, may I interrupt? I'm sorry. I just want to make a couple of notes. As you know, there's been a couple of changes to the agreement that was in the packet that maybe you might want to.
We will, after we get it on the table, we'll have that conversation. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have, first, Mr. Avila will make a presentation, but as our clerk just informed us, we had a late, if you will, adjustment to the agreement vis-a-vis a conversation that I had with the county manager related to the escalation clause that was in the original IGA that was before you. And so I'll have Danielle describe the change, if you will, Madam Clerk, so that you all know it is a change that's, I think, better for the village, but I would like for you to put that on the table.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 1, under Clause 2, Duties of the Village, item C, the annual escalator was indicated at being second, and the agreement was to change it to third. So that would be the third year of the term of this agreement. The second change would be under Category 4, Compensation and Method of Payment. That would be item C, and that would relate to the same item, which would be from year 2 to year 3 on that increase. Those were the only two changes to the agreement, other than what you had already received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And again, this was a conversation where I believe that we talked a little bit with the county manager, and I indicated that the village is obviously very interested in having the county perform that service. But given our budgets, et cetera, that if we would have a reprieve a little longer before the escalation clauses take into effect, and she agreed to make that change. Unfortunately, the agreement had already been sent to all of you, and so we just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. So with that being said, let me turn it over to Mr. Avila so he can, if you will, elaborate on the agreement. And I do believe someone from the county may be here too, also too. There's Misha. So let me go ahead, go John.
Mayor, Board of Trustees, I just wanted to make sure the county representatives are able to come up and introduce themselves if they're going to be speaking on this. I don't know who's here.
Why don't you just go ahead and talk about the agreement, then we'll have them come up.
Alrighty. So this agreement, at least in my understanding, has been going on, the forming of it, the conversation, the partnership has been talked about here for at least over a year. One of the difficulties we had was just establishing what the level of service is necessary here. And in the village, we, have a pretty good responsible ownership. So it's rare that we have extreme issues, but we do have issues on a regular basis. And so we do need that support for animal control. And the county is able to leverage their staffing and equipment and so forth to allow that. These are the numbers that they took back over a period of time. And so we think there's a good start as to service level and cost. So with that, we will be, with this agreement adopting that, we also have to then also make sure that we're adopting our ordinances to conform with this. That's pretty much, the ordinances we have in place already were already based on what the county had. So there's not going to be too many changes there, we think. That's another step we need to take on this. So with that, we do recommend entering into this agreement. It gives us the wider, deeper support, and so that it's not on one person here at the village, and that the county can man that and cover us for longer hours and for more occasions that we have need of them.
Thank you, Mr. Avila. And now we will call on county representatives to come and speak on behalf of Bernalillo County on this matter.
Good evening, trustees, mayor, and all the citizens of the village. I'm Misha Goodman. I'm director of Bernalillo County Animal Care Services. This is Ben Silva. He's our field services manager. And we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Like what was just described, we're here to offer services to the village. That will include enforcement, taking care of emergency situations in the village, and sheltering services, which will include taking animals in, reclaiming them back to their owners, adoption, and those kind of services that we also provide.
Any questions of Misha and her staff?
I have one, Mayor.
Go ahead, Trustee Ranovich.
I noticed you will participate in 2 outreach events. Could you describe what those would be?
Yeah, so they could be a variety of things, and really we want to work with the village on what your needs are. So we do outreach events for adoption. We do resource and outreach events to help citizens get free or low-cost vaccinations, microchipping, things like that that help us get those animals back to them should they get lost. So we can be involved in a variety of different things. If you have something in the village that's going on, we're happy to send some of our staff to attend that and put up a table and give out information, educational information or whatever, that will help people in the village better care for their animals and have them as part of their family.
Thank you, Misha.
Sure.
Any other questions? Trustee Benavides?
Oh, okay, just one. Sort of related to Trustee Radovich's question. Oops. Yes, it's somewhat related to what Trustee Ranovich was talking about, and that is you're doing the monthly animal adoptions, right? In fact, I'm just going to read the sentence that's on page 25 of my packet. The village will provide space at 87474 Street Northwest, Village of Los Ranchos, New Mexico, and other village property if needed for monthly animal adoption. So that all sounds great. So my question is, will there be a sheltering of animals at any of these addresses or anywhere on the village property?
So let me explain how that little piece came about. Okay. We had an issue with mold at our shelter, which some of you may have heard about in one area of the shelter. And while it's being reconstructed, we needed an area to house some animals. And we were looking for places to house. And that was one of the locations, which it's like a barn kind of structure. And we were looking at that to house animals in. We don't need that now. So instead, we would be looking, if we were doing some kind of adoption event in the village, that might be a location to have it. We could have an event next door as well, or in front of one of the shopping locations that you have. So really, again, we want to work with the village on what's the best place to do something like that. for the best benefit to the community.
Okay, so sheltering of animals, which could be dogs, cats, maybe other animals as well, could happen in the village.
Probably not, no.
Oh, probably not.
We would be sheltering only at our current location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Trustee Kiefer?
Mayor, thank you. So I've got a few questions because animals are my passion. And so as much as I appreciate and I know we need the services, I'm also very cautious of the word enforcement. Because a lot of Bernalillo County is very urbanized, right? Majority of it is the city of Albuquerque. There is limited county, and then there's the village that's in the county. And our demographic of animals is different than what you're gonna find in an urban setting, right? We've got more sheep and goats and horses and all the fun stuff that you won't typically find in a, Northeast Heights neighborhood. So I guess when I hear that our ordinances are gonna have to change, who has done the side-by-side comparison of what the changes are in what would have to be enforced versus what our current ordinances reflect, so that we know what those changes are before we agree to a contract of enforcement on rules that we don't even know what they are?
Part of what we've moved towards is away from really the term enforcement, even though it says that in your guys' packet. Really, it's referred to as field services now, because we're there to serve the public. It's not a strong arm type of thing anymore. We're there
I
to help.
appreciate that.
We're there to help out in any way we can in the field. And as far as the animal code goes, I know we had previously had meetings, myself, Misha, the mayor, John, and looked at the code. And I would say roughly 90% of your guys' code is already word for word, like copied from our code. There's a few small things that are different, but the majority of it is word for word off of the Bernalillo County code.
Okay, so I'd like to know the 10%. I mean, that may be, but I think that's fair, right? Because before I can make a decision on the rules of the game that we're playing by, I want to know what the rules are before the game starts. Second of all.
So real quick, I
Yeah.
want to mention, I think one of the differences is licensing.
Okay,
Because you don't license and we do.
okay,
We're working to get rid of our licensing. So that would be a change in our ordinance that is already in effect in yours. So
okay.
they're not all necessarily things that you would.
Are bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I know one other thing that has come up, and I know Trustee Benavides brought it up, and I agreed with him and supported it, is in one of our ordinances that we looked at was, and it's our criminal ordinance, of allowing an animal to be dispatched by a gun in village property, because most times they say that's the most humane way to take care of, especially a large animal is, and so my question, I guess, to the county is, how would that, if that ordinance changes, how would that be accepted in the rules?
So as far as that goes, that's not really something we do in the field. We don't dispatch by firearm. Any animal that's injured would be taken to our shelter or taken to a vet to be humanely euthanized.
Or a vet would be called out.
Okay, I was gonna say, you're gonna cart a horse.
Yeah, in the case of a horse where maybe the owner couldn't afford it, or we don't know who the owner is, we would contract with a veterinarian to come out and euthanize the animal there, and they don't use firearm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but there wouldn't be a criminal problem as long as our ordinance doesn't have it on a homeowner utilizing that method on their own?
No, there would not be a criminal charge for that.
Okay. Okay, one other question. and this is a purely selfish question. Is there a limit to roosters in the county?
No, there is not.
All right.
How many do you have?
I have 3. And they're all 3 of my babies. Thank you. That's all I have.
That's a great question. Thank you, first of all.
I've got a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry, I'm sorry. Frank?
I've got a couple of questions. One is, would you then be responding to a resident call, or are you going to be patrolling through the village in order to see if there are animals that may be loose or whatever?
Yeah, so the response that we would have in the village would be the same response that we give to all of Bernalillo County. So we don't respond in the city of Albuquerque. I know that was brought up. The city of Albuquerque Animal Welfare is separate from us. So we cover kind of the South Valley, the East Mountains, the North Valley, parts of Bernalillo County that are outside city limits. And we'd be giving the same type of response that we would anywhere else in the county. We have either an officer is on shift or on call 24/7, 365 with our operation. There's not, you call at midnight and have to leave a message and someone comes the next day 9 hours later. If it's an emergent situation, even at midnight, we have an officer who's on call to come handle those type of things.
Okay, well, thank you. The other question is, I noticed in the document that there is a maximum of 100 calls. I think it said it was 100 calls.
No, essentially what it says, if we hit over 100 calls or more,
Right.
then we'll look at the amount of the contract. So the amount, the monetary amount of the contract.
Do we have an idea about how many calls we've had typically on an annual basis?
I think, Trustee Rao, I think that's really the question that John sort of pointed when he was describing the contract, is that when we handle it in-house, in the past, there was never really a tracking mechanism on the number of calls. So part of this is working with, and the county has been very gracious in working with us. I think a cap at 100 is fair. I don't know that we will get close to that, but I think this is the important reason why I think this contract's a right thing for the village, and that is that the county will now start keeping track of that data and give us this, if you will, a report on number of calls, types of animals, how many roosters are running around the town, and that sort of thing. And it would be fair to have that data. So I guess to answer your question, we don't have that database at this point.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, because I know in the past, when you guys had your own animal control officer, a lot of it was kind of just someone would call a cell phone, he would go out and do something. We have our actual, it's not connected to BCSO's CAD, but it's like our own CAD system where every call is recorded and handled properly. So we'll have that data once we get going to truly show how many calls are coming in.
And we can even break it down to, quadrants of the village and where most of those animals are coming from, that type of thing.
Okay. Any other questions? I think Trustee Kiefer.
Sorry, one more question for you. I know we kind of are talking about owned animals, right? Dogs, cats, horses. Would you guys respond to wild animals? Because we have a lot of those, and I think our previous animal control officer would do his best to try to help.
So what we do as far as wildlife, if there's any injured wildlife, something that's hit by a car, we will respond and deal with that. If there's wildlife that have gotten inside someone's house, like as a raccoon that's in your house, we'll come help with that. But as far as trapping and relocating healthy wildlife that's just outside, that's not something that we do.
Trustee Ranovich.
Thank you, Mayor. That's interesting because we had a badger at our house that came down the ditch, and Dominic was able to take care of it, actually. But you wouldn't do that.
Was it
in your house? No, it wasn't. It was in our yard.
Yeah, so our model generally is to leave wildlife alone. If it's sick or injured, we will come and assist it. There are private contractors that will do removal. We don't do it because it's not very successful. Usually when you move wildlife out, it just makes an apartment space for more wildlife to move in. And so that's why we don't relocate wildlife unless they're dangerous or they're sick or injured.
Badgers are can be pretty dangerous.
What about a snake?
Yes, we will respond to snake calls to remove snakes from your house or even like your front porch. Whether it's a rattlesnake or a bull snake. I know bull snakes aren't venomous, but a lot of people just don't like snakes. So that is a service that we offer.
I have a 6-foot one. I move him myself or have my husband, but just in case.
Well, and I've seen a number of coyotes in the ditches around the village, a number of them, yeah. Were there any other questions from members of the board? Okay, so we have a, we have a, let's see okay. So we have an agreement in front of us. We already have a approval, a motion to approve. Have a second with no other comment?
No.
Okay, with no other comment, let's do a roll call. Do we need to do roll call? We can do it by acclamation.
This is an all in favor.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the intergovernmental agreement between the County of Bernalillo and the Village of Los Ranchos to provide animal care services, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries 4-0.
Folks, we look forward to serving you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, so.
8A. On 8A.
Yeah. Hang on.
You almost made it.
Thank you all. All right, now we're into new business. Approval of the mayor as the voting delegate for the 2025 New Mexico Municipal League Annual Conference to be held September 17th to the 19th, 2025 in Ruidoso, New Mexico, naming the alternate as either our administrator, Mr. Avila, or our clerk, Ms. Cedillo Molina. We need a motion for approving our voting delegates.
Motion to approve the voting delegates.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Just for all you all's information, I know that our clerk has reached out to you all about the conference, recognizing that we all have busy lives, et cetera. So I will be attending, and again, my always inclination is that if we have an elected official from the village, and they should have the voting delegate, if you will, responsibility before staff. However, in this case, at this point, we've not heard that any of you might be attending or not. And so if that changes, let me know, but this would be to give the clerk and obviously the New Mexico Municipal League the approval that who is actually voting on the league issues, et cetera. With that being said, is there any other conversation, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. It's approved. Now move to item B. Approval of appointment pursuant to 3-11-6-1 NMSA 1978. Subject to the approval of the majority of all the members of the governing body, the mayor shall appoint all officers and employees for the village. I want to introduce all of you Ms. Shanna Schultz, who I have designated and would like to have your support as our new Planning and Zoning Director. Is there a motion for approval of the appointment?
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Shanna Schultz as Planning and Zoning Director.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Before we go to the vote, Shanna, would you just say a few words about your background, et cetera, and for the members of the community in particular?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and trustees. My name's Shanna Schultz. I bring, I think, a wealth of municipal planning experience to the village. The entirety of my career has been in municipal planning. The village itself contracts a lot of their services, animal welfare, as we just experienced, public safety, but planning and zoning is one of the services that the village does directly offer. My kind of work history is specifically in the policy and regulation realm, which I think is extremely applicable to this position and to this office. I've had the pleasure of being here for a couple of weeks already, and I've gotten to know the staff. I've met some of the trustees, and I met some of the planning and zoning commissioners, and I'm really excited to be here, and I would really appreciate your support on my appointment this evening. Thank you.
Are there any questions of Ms. Schultz from any of the trustees? I would just say that I think we have a great planning and zoning director. I'm excited, as I've said to many of you and to a lot of folks in the community, one of our biggest responsibilities as a community is ensuring our land use and zoning that is working, et cetera. And we are lucky to have someone with Shanna's experience willing to come and help us. She's already got a list of, some of you may have visited her in her office. If you haven't, you can go in her office. She's got at least 15 amendments that we all need to be made, and we're going to spend a lot of time apparently dealing with planning and zoning. So, but anyway, I'm glad that she's here. So, that being said, seeing no other conversation, all those in favor of the appointment signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations. Thanks.
Welcome.
Welcome. All right, item C, approval of award. Request for proposals, RFP for IT services, authorizing Mayor Rael to enter into a contract with the following firm, My IT Support LLC. Is there a motion to approve?
Sure. Motion to approve. Authorizing Mayor Rael to enter into a contract with the following firm, My IT Support LLC.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this particular issue? We issued our RFP for proposals. This group responded. Obviously, they've been doing some of our work for some time and have done a great job, and so I'm glad we're able to continue to use them. Seeing no other questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question, Mayor. And Kiko and his company have done a great job. I totally agree. Are there not local companies that serve municipalities? And nothing against you guys. I'm just asking the question. I know we can't force companies to submit a proposal if they haven't. It just surprised me that there's not a local interest.
Well, and just before you, go ahead, Kiko, before you come up, I would just simply say, look, I asked the same question, simply because I thought that maybe that might be the case. Yeah. Although, as you know, our process obviously is folks respond and we put it out there for folks to respond, and obviously Kiko's group did a nice response. So, Kiko, if you'd like to come up and say and address this issue as best you know, obviously to some extent being somewhat biased about it, I suspect.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mayor, trustees, I think, George, the easiest way to answer that is in the last 10 years or so, as the migration of services has left from on-site servers and support like that throughout the industry into cloud computing services. One of the effects that has had and was accelerated during COVID in a huge way was that everything got consolidated into IT firms that grew bigger, and some of the local firms got smaller. For us, we had to adapt. If you don't know, My IT Support was started in a brick and mortar store right here on 4th Street. That's where we started from. And we were here, and that's how we ended up doing services for the village for a long time. We've been around longer than most of the people here. But that was a pivot that had to happen in the IT world. And so most support these days is now, the first level of support is remote support. And it's just a way to keep costs lower, because to have staff on site 24/7 gets very expensive very, very quickly. And IT salaries have gone like through the roof. And so that was a way for lots of organizations, from municipalities to businesses, to cut and keep costs reduced at a lower level. And so that has a lot to do with there's not as many companies doing support at that level that can support that. And so.
Thanks, Kiko. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
And the fact that you started here in the metropolitan area is great. I mean, that's awesome. That makes me feel a lot better about that side of it. So thank you for the answer.
That's good. Any other questions?
Nope, I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the trustees? If not, we have a motion to approve. All those in favor of the approval of the award signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. It's been approved. Motion carries. We'll now move to item D, ordinance numbers 303. And please bear with me, it is a long introduction. An ordinance amending the text of 9.2-.3, definitions, 9.2.6, transfer of development rights and regulations, 9.2.13, gateway district zone, 9.214, village center zone, 9.218, off-street parking regulations, and 9.2.22, signs of the comprehensive zoning code to remove duplicate and unused terms, modify existing formatting for consistency and clarification, and update all standards to meet applicable specifications and requirements. This is presented to the trustees for approval to publish and advertise. As ordinances are, we are introducing that for a final decision to be made in 30 days or at our next board meeting. With that, I will move over to Mr. Williams to give a detailed, if you will, or at least to some extent, a explanation of this item. It is a very long item and has a lot of nuance to it, but I just want to make sure I, again, remind ourselves that this is now just for publication and it won't be adopted until, obviously, the next meeting. So, Mr. Williams.
Mayor and trustees, thank you very much. Mayor, you're correct. Long description. If you read the legal ad or looked at the agenda, it looks quite daunting. I can assure you it's not. This is a very simple proposal. There are essentially two parts to what's being proposed by the village tonight. One is approximately 75 to 80% of this are new sign regulations that are being proposed. They, generally speaking, mirror existing sign regulations, but we are making some tweaks to those to implement specific standards and best practices. The remaining items are simply formatting changes. In working with the code, there are various sections of the code that include within their individual sections definitions. And tonight's proposal simply takes those definitions that are outside of the definition section, which is section 3 of the Comprehensive Zoning Code, and consolidating all definitions within section 3. And that helps for formatting, consistency, and readability. It's just easier to understand if you're looking for a definition if you go to the definition section. Or conversely, if you're looking for specific regulations, you go to the zone. We do have certain definitions currently that have regulations within the definition section. Those are the only changes that are being proposed. This matter was before your Planning and Zoning Commission at 3 different hearings. Hearing in April, their hearing in June, and most recently in July. Following their discussion and consideration of the proposal, they voted to recommend approval to the board of these proposed text amendments. With that, I will stand for questions.
All right, I know we have a lot of questions, so let me start with Trustee Renovich.
Thanks, Mayor. I do have a lot of questions, but some of them are pretty small. And I wondered, actually, I mean, I could go through this whole ordinance and give them to you, but I wondered if it would be easier for me to just give you red lines, just questions through that, because I don't think any of them are big enough that I'd want to talk about them today. However, one of them that I think it would be helpful for you to know, and this actually happened before our two newest trustees came to us a couple years ago, is the bed and breakfast piece. There were quite a bit of there was quite a bit of neighbor interaction and upsettedness about our bed and breakfast ordinance, and so and that stemmed from actually more than one case. A lot of bed and breakfast cases came to us at one time. So I'd sure make a recommendation to our administration that we look at that in the future. And I realize that's not a big part of what you're talking about here, but 8 guest rooms was one of the things that came to light in these arguments. And that's just, in my mind, that seems like a lot for a little village like this. It almost turns a guest house into, a hotel at that size. So that was one of the comments that I just wanted to bring to you. Shauna, did you have something you want to say?
Yes, trustee, thanks for those comments. To your first point, please do feel free to email your red lines if you want to get in the weeds on some of that text.
I know it.
We can probably do that before the next hearing and get your questions answered, amendments drafted, et cetera. It sounds like you have a concern about the village's current bed and breakfast regulations and how they're zoned. There aren't any changes proposed to that as a part of this package, and so if that's something you'd like to talk about, a future text amendment to the zoning code, I think we could do that, but I don't think that fits into what's before you tonight.
That's exactly what I was suggesting, Shauna. Just that I think we really need to look at the bed and breakfast ordinance, because there are some issues with it. And Trustee Benavidez probably remembers those days and the amount of interaction and upsettedness that people had about it.
Yeah. Let me do this. Let me do this, trustees. I apologize to all of you, but we did have someone signed up for this particular item.
Oh.
And I apologize that we didn't get a chance to do that. So let me turn it back over to Ms. Daniela to have her call the individual.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Mr. Tom Donnellan. If you would, please approach. You'll pass. Okay, thank you. Well, that concludes speaking.
Very good. Thanks, Tom. All right, well, back to the trustees.
I have questions, but somebody else will go before me.
Trustee Kiefer, would you like to take a stab at this?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm gonna kind of, I've got a lot of questions. I've got a lot of concerns. I know that this is to just publish and advertise. And I know it's been through planning and zoning multiple times. I guess my first question is, don't we have a moratorium on some of these zones that planning and zoning was looking at for us to review to lift that? And does this have anything to do with that?
Trustee Kiefer, thanks for that question. Yes, there is a moratorium in effect that directed the planning department to work on a set of proposed changes to the VC zone district and the CC zone district to meet the community's needs. That is an entirely separate package that the Planning and Zoning Committee is currently considering. So none of those changes will be reflected here. In a couple of months, you'll get to talk zoning again about that particular topic.
Okay, and maybe that's where a lot of my questions are coming from, and maybe Trustee Radnovich, kind of where yours are coming from, because it seems like, I had bed and breakfast on mine as well. So we're talking specifically definitions is what I could pick up from this, because I'll be quite honest, reading a red line up and down versus side by side for me is difficult. So I had to do my own kind of comparison of what changed here to what's changing here. So I want to make sure that, so we're also talking signs is what's changing, and parking is what's changing. What else is like changing in definitions?
Trustee Kiefer, to your point about signs and definitions, none of that is changing. None of it is new content. It's moving the content around so that it can be in a place that makes sense and that is enforceable by the department. So when you see maybe what appears to be a new definition in here, it's not a new definition, it's just being moved from somewhere else in the code. The only section that contains significant new content is going to be the signs section. Otherwise, the remaining changes are really just what I would characterize as reformatting.
Okay. So then let's talk signs, because I've got questions on signs, since we know that signs is the big one that's changing. So it looks like billboards are gonna be banned, is kind of what I picked up on this. And illuminated areas capped at 16 square feet. So will neon and internal illuminations be limited to protect our rural character?
Trustee Kiefer, let me navigate to the section that will talk about illuminated signs. I'll need just a second to do that.
Sure.
To answer your first question, billboards are already prohibited in the current code, and so that is not a change.
Do we not have any billboards in the village?
There are. I think they're probably grandfathered.
Well, and that's kind of what I read, is they're grandfathered, so they would their change would be if that gets sold, gets moved, something.
Right.
So, I guess, who's policing that, and how's that going to, be monitored and or transitioned?
Trustee Kiefer, the regulation in the code today says no new billboard shall be erected. So any billboards that were in place when that piece of the code was adopted are legal. We call those legally non-conforming. They can continue to live on. And the department continues to enforce on those kinds of things. And so if there's a billboard that you're concerned with, we would do the research. Our code enforcement officer would do the research to see if it's legally non-conforming. If it is, they can continue that use. If it's not, we would pursue enforcement action to make them compliant with the code.
Okay, because I could swear I saw something. Sorry, I'm gonna do a quick control find real quick on the.
Trustee, can I ask a question while you're looking?
Please, yeah.
Go ahead, Trustee Granovich.
Can I, Mayor? Thank you. I did some research on TDRs just because I read through this ordinance probably for the first time as detailed, in as detailed a way as I could. And one of the things that I noticed that some TDRs allow is changes in density and changes in the height of buildings. And so if you could talk about that a little bit, Shauna. We had, as you may or may not know, there was an uproar about a project that happened here in the village a couple years ago. And it was specifically about densities and height of buildings. So if you could talk to that a little bit, because I did read some things that showed that if properties are part of a TDR arrangement, that they could change that even within zones.
Trustee Radonovich, thank you for the question. One thing I want to clarify is that there aren't any changes proposed to the TDR code as a part of this. I think we might be moving some language around to different sections, but generally the concept behind transfer of development rights is that it's a legal mechanism to take density and intensity that is entitled to one parcel and move it to another parcel where it is more appropriate. And that might be because you're wanting to preserve the intensity or the low intensity of kind of the initial space. And you're right, that is accomplished through things like dwelling units per acre, lowering the number on one parcel but raising it on another, building heights, setbacks, parking. These are all the things that relate to more intense development that a transfer of development rights agreement would approach.
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Kiefer.
It may be something we want.
The pressure.
Checkmate.
Did I give you enough time?
No, usually you can, George. I'm a little disappointed.
Well, I am sure George can think of more questions.
I'm sure I can.
I've got,
Trustee Renner.
you know, the TDR issue is one that kind of stuck with me as well. And, you know, and I did some other research, and we may have gone to the same places.
Could be.
But I guess the issue that I have is that as this transition is made, one property is going to be giving up their development rights. Another property is going to gain those rights. But in doing so, if the receiving property, then need to maintain the same kind of, the same limitations that it may have under the zoning code for that property. So then you may then get a situation where someone wants to pursue development rights, and let's say they want to raise it from 2 stories to 3 stories, okay? But the code does, or the zone does not provide for 3 stories. So is there then an exception that's made because of the development right?
Hello. Trustee, thank you for the question. I am not well-versed in Los Ranchos TDR code. I wasn't prepared to talk about that this evening since we're not discussing the content of that. I'm hearing a lot of interest in the village's TDR code, and I would be happy to do some in-depth research and come back before this board at a later date if you have questions or just want to understand how that works. Generally, my understanding of TDRs and other codes is that you do get to exceed that zone district's base limitation when you make this agreement, and the governmental entity is agreeing that you can go beyond what you would normally be allowed to do because you're taking that intensity from somewhere else. I'm not positive that's how this code works, but I would love to dive into it, and I can get you more information.
With that, let me defer to Mr. Chappell if he has any comments related to this.
Mayor and trustees, as the principal drafter of the changes in the sign ordinance, I thought I should speak up. The organization, the provisions that you're talking about appear in this amendment only because something was added to it or taken out. None of the substantive provisions of any of that changes. The only substantive changes in this package have to do with the signs themselves. Because of current litigation, we are prohibited from approving signs, disapproving signs, or that kind of thing on a content basis. In other words, you cannot reject or approve a sign or approve something because you've looked at the content and says it should be this way or that way. So in order to do this and meet the constitutional requirements, we have removed the approval basis and categorizing signs on a content basis. And that's the changes that were made in the sign ordinance. And those are the only substantive changes that are before you. However, there were, for instance, definitions in the original sign ordinance that were changed a bit. And rather than put those just in the sign ordinance, they were moved into the definition section of the ordinance. The same thing with gateway, the same way with the transfer rights. There were definitions in those sections that were taken out and moved into a consolidated definition section. But none of those things that you're concerned about, talking about, were changed. It's only the criteria for approval or disapproval of signs that removed it. You can't approve a sign because it has a church or has a commercial message or has some other message to it. It has to be on a non-biased, no content basis. And that's the only substantive change in what has been presented to you tonight.
Thank you very much for that clarification. we'll go back, where trustee Renata, you still have the
No,
floor?
we're done.
You're good? All right, go back to trustee Kiefer.
Thank you. Okay, so Shanna, I'm looking on page 94 of 230. And it's I'm on the red line, 4. And so it says, notwithstanding any part of 9.2.22, all off-premise and portable signs as they existed on May 29th are exempt, which I get, from the restrictions contained herein until such signs are changed, moved, replaced, or are expired. So I understand the non-conforming, but this sounds like this is really not non-conforming, because if anything changes in relation to those types of signs, they are then no longer approved, correct? In this language.
Mayor and Trustee Kiefer, that is also how I would interpret that language. Generally, with sign regulations, if you're repairing a sign, that doesn't kick in all the new rules. If you're doing very minor modifications, you don't have to comply with sign regs. The word changed here is pretty open-ended, and so if someone has a billboard and it's red today and they wanted to paint it blue tomorrow, is that a change? Unclear, but I would be happy to flag that for some further thought.
And the reason I ask, and I don't want billboards up and down 4th Street by any means, but we do have businesses that make money off of their current billboards. And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, because we seem to keep doing this over and over and over as a board is, hey, let's rush through this, let's consolidate this, let's just do this part, and let's forget about the rest and the implications of everything else. And so I'm more of a holistic approach person. And so if we're gonna do the signs, let's do the signs, and let's do the signs right and tighten up any type of problems, because we're also talking about in here, we're talking about illuminated signs, right? And we're allowing 16 square feet. But then we also say, hey, but these signs have to comply with the dark sky ordinance. Well, how does an illuminated 16 square foot sign comply with dark sky ordinance? And maybe we need to either make the print smaller of an illuminated sign, or need to cap the amount of illuminated signs so when you're driving down 4th Street, it's not like you're on the Las Vegas Strip. Not that everybody would do that, but that's what it potentially leaves the door open to. And so, I just want to make sure as we start making tweaks that we're not inadvertently leaving ourselves open to consequences that we didn't have the forethought to see.
Mayor and Trustee Kiefer, I think I can answer a couple of those questions if it feels helpful. The code already identifies how a property owner can become compliant with the Night Skies Act, and it generally relates to shielding of the light. So we would require some kind of physical barrier at the top of the light so that it doesn't shine upwards. That's what the Night Sky or the Dark Sky Act is seeking to protect. You had a very specific question about neon lighting. That is in proposed section 9.2.22.5D on page 163 of your packet. And what it says is that signs using neon tubing must be approved by the planning director as being compatible with and complementary to the geographic location at which they are proposed. And then also in that section, the brightness is regulated, and there's kind of a technical standard that we use called foot Lamberts. We have light meters that can measure that kind of thing, and so neon lighting is covered in that section of the code.
I know I saw it somewhere, so that's why it was kind of one of those that I wrote notes on of how do we protect, because again, are we going back to, by allowing it, are we going back to, and I mean, no offense to you because you're new, right? But do we go back to the subjectiveness of whoever holds the seat of planning and zoning? rather than the objectiveness of the ordinance says no, or the ordinance says yes, and the ordinance is very specific on what the lumens need to be, or what the cap needs to be, and what the size needs to be. Because we're running into a lot of subjective decisions coming out of planning and zoning, and I think we really need to tighten that up to really be able to protect the village.
Mayor and Trustee Kiefer, as the administrator of the code, I would love more objective language. The less subjective decisions I have to make, the better. And so if you're interested in thinking through how we can make any of this language more objective, in this particular example of giving the planning director the ability to approve a neon sign or not, we could think up criteria so that it's a pretty black and white yes or no. That's something that we could work on together.
So let me ask you, is this something that we should work on together prior to publishing and advertising, or do we go through this whole process, right? And then we have a trustee meeting, maybe 2 people show up to talk, if that, and we're back in the same situation, and now we feel, okay, well, now we've got it before us, we have to make a decision. To me, I'd rather see stuff done and the working, or the final, as close to final document be presented before the board and published to the constituents so that they understand what we're really making decisions on. Then let's make a decision, and then, oh yeah, we gotta remember 6 months later, now we've gotta go back and fix it.
Mayor and Trustee Kiefer, I can appreciate the publishing as being the first step in the process. That's what really puts the public on notice that we're talking about this at all. And so I'm always gonna vote, not that I'm voting, to move forward with the publishing action. I do think there's time between now and the next Board of Trustees meeting for you and I to sit down to talk about some of these specifics. And the way I see that process looking is if any trustee has questions or wants language drafted, we would do that in the form of an amendment to the code, and we would work on that together. That could go out to the public, perhaps on the website. We could post future red line versions so they can see what we're changing. And then we would discuss these again in a month.
Okay, I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Okay,
Thank you,
do we
Shannon.
have Trustee Radnovich?
Mayor, just to follow up on what Trustee Kiefer said. I would like to be part of that meeting if we, I think there can be 2 of us, it's not a, and because I think you're right. There are some parts of this that are really out of date, and we should be taking care of them. So I guess my question would be, even though the changes haven't been much other than through the signage, can we go ahead and take care of those other changes after we publish also?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, are you asking about changes that are kind of outside the scope of what's before you?
Yes.
Such as the TDR and B&B you were talking about. I think that's inadvisable because the way that this process was started, if you refer to the title of the bill, those are the sections that the P&Z Commission discussed. They were presented, that they made changes to. I think what is cleaner for the public is to do a separate bill that is more focused on a particular topic. That would be my suggestion.
So at what level then can we go? For instance, if I find, and I think I did find one, a spelling error, we can take care of that.
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, yes, I think clerical changes are always on the table. When you've got a code in front of you, it's the substantive stuff that I think you need to be careful about how you package and in which package you're presenting it in.
Yeah. So what's the level that isn't? A sentence grammar change is acceptable as well, but not, for instance, here's one that I just happen to have in front of me. It's on page 161, and it's H, and it says the maximum area allowed for signs shall include any signs painted on windows or other surfaces of the property. In my mind, there might be a fine line there between a sign and, say, a mural. because I've seen some in other parts of the country where signs that have something to do with what's going on, not signs, I'm sorry, murals that have something to do with what's going on inside the property, add to the properties, add to the businesses, kind of education of the public, but also it's a mural at the same time. So, you know, are things like that too complicated at this point? I think that's what you're saying.
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, I do think that kind of changes on the table. You're talking about the sign regulations, and there are a lot of substantive changes to the sign regulations in here. So I think that that is
So
free
specifically
game.
the sign.
Yeah, and I would, for that specific question, for your future reference, on page 130, there's a definition of what a mural is, and the code would consider a mural a sign.
Got it.
And let me make maybe one comment for the public and obviously for all of us collectively. I think what we have here is really, it's in a nutshell, as I think as Mr. Chappell indicated, this really was an effort to look at the sign ordinance, right?
I know.
As with everything that we all do, well, since we're opening that, let's go in there and clarify definitions that may be found in other places in the code. And so all of a sudden, definitions that we've not seen before show up, and you're trying to decipher between, is this really a sign ordinance, or is this really changing the entire code of the village? And so I think it's just imperative, for at least for the community to know. I do agree that there are lots of places, and would agree wholeheartedly with Trustee Kiefer's perspective as it relates to trying to get it right. But I also would just caution all of us is that there are 5 of us up here with opinions. There are lots of folks, including our planning and zoning folks, who have their bite at the apples too, including the community. I mean, I think these things are living documents. They change all the time, and I don't know that we'll ever have the perfect code, but we certainly should strive for that. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we all look at this in that perspective, as Bill mentioned earlier. We're really trying to adjust the sign piece of it, but giving Shanna additional information in areas where we think, like the bed and breakfast ordinance we talked about some time ago, and some others are, as I said to you when you were taking this job, there are a list of codes that we have talked about wanting to get through, and a one-man show, Mr. Williams, you know, only could juggle so many balls in the air, and now that we have you here, you know, I think we can maybe get to some of those as well. So just a point of information for the trustees.
Good
anyway,
points.
Any other comments?
I have some, but she's.
Trustee Kiefer, you good? All right, let's go to Trustee Benavides.
Okay. So even though I was on planning and zoning for 2 years, I'm embarrassed to say that when I was appointed to be a commissioner, I did not read the entire set of ordinances. So, well, when an item comes up and there is pertinent, the ordinance is pertinent to the item, yes, then I read it, right? And so likewise, there are lots of things that continue to surprise me when I see the ordinances. And I won't belabor the issue about TDR, but I will say that I suspect a lot of people in the public out there didn't realize there's such a thing as transfer development rights, and that may alarm some people. So my suggestion to you, and you can email me these questions. Has this been done before? Okay. What is the process? And does it come before the BOT? And I think maybe the answers to those questions may appease some of the public. Okay. So let me get to the sign issue. Well, before I say that, is there an urgency to getting this done?
Trustee Ranovich, and I'm sorry, Benavides and trustees in general. I think that there is a interest that we at least deal with the sign ordinance as we are coming close to an election, and we are going to see a lot of folks beginning to want to put their campaign literature, not just locally, but just from in the state, et cetera, as a major election. And in order for our planning folks and our staff to be able to, I think, to vet through that, that's the piece of the sign. The sign piece is really, I think, important for us to at least get to a point where we can regulate that aspect. And so that's why, that's the urgency.
Okay, I mean, so here's the problem with what you just said. The season is now, right? People are gonna make their declaration, put out ads now. Well, August 26th is when you go to the county clerks and make your declaration. So here we are gonna vote to advertise, which I'm okay with. So that means come September, the sign ordinance can change, right? So people will be buying their yard signs very soon now. And so that means perhaps they can put their yard signs out according to one ordinance, and then they have to remove them according to a different ordinance, right? So that to me is confusing. So, yeah, I don't know how we settle that. Did you have a comment about that?
Shanna?
Mayor and Trustee Benavides, the way that zoning rules work generally is that if you are doing something legal and the government changes the rules on you, you don't have to change what you were doing. So in the instance of, I put in a yard sign that's maybe legal under today's code, we change the rules, for some reason it's not legal moving forward, you get to keep doing that. That's the non-conforming status that we were talking about a moment ago. So folks would not be kind of picking up signs and moving them around their yard as we're thinking about these regulations. That would not happen.
Okay, in regards to political signs being placed in the right-of-way, you know, I mean, the current ordinance allows you to put it in the right-of-way, I think for like Rio Grande Boulevard, 4th Street, and I think there might be a couple of crossroads in between that you can put those in. And so that kind of right-of-way is usually understandable to people that put those signs up. What is not as clear is right away in some of the minor streets, right, the residential streets. And you would think, okay, if it's outside the fence, it's in the right of way, but that's not necessarily true because the fence is not always put up against the boundary, right? And I've gotten calls about that, so. Just a heads up that it's going to be very confusing. And so, let's see, in regards to signs, there's something about no signs on utility poles, but there are private utility poles. I think you mean public utility poles, right?
Mayor and Trustee Benavides, that is correct. And if we need to add the word public to that section, that is a great recommendation and an easy fix.
And Attorney Chappell was talking about how we can't control the content, I believe, as being an important issue. That worries me. You know, it seems like you should be able to say, and of course this could be subjective, no vulgar language, right? I mean, I don't know how it seems like you should be able to say that, right?
Just the way you pronounce that, vulgar.
It's vulgar, yeah.
Versus just vulgar. Yeah, it's subjective, but Mr. Chappell?
Yeah, Mayor and Trustee Benavides, the thrust of the sign ordinance is not just the content of the sign, but it is approval of signs having different criteria for different things that have different content, okay? So you've got to look at them the same. Whether or not the language of the sign is objectionable and you can control it on that basis is purely a test of what has been approved, what has been decided by the U.S. or Supreme Court or someone as to inappropriate language on a sign. This doesn't try to do that. It just simply says that when you approve a sign, if it's a political sign, if it's a church sign, if it's a business sign, although you can have some different categories as this one does for commercial zoning and residential zoning, or any other kind of a sign, you can't make the content of the sign a condition of approval. And so we're not saying what the content is, it's just saying that you can't use that for a basis to approve the sign or not approve the sign. We're not trying to say you cannot say this or you cannot say that if you meet the other criteria. The step beyond that is if it is, considered to be unacceptable from a public basis based on court decisions, you can prohibit it on that basis, and this ordinance does not keep us from doing that.
Well, I mean, we can refer to a recent example, recent, maybe 6 months ago, where I think there was a vulgar sign, right? And apparently we couldn't do much about that. Are you saying that maybe we can? Or there's some precedent, either through state regulations or U.S. federal regulations, that we can keep that from happening?
Trustee Benavides, the particular sign we're talking about, or that you're talking about, probably, once the wording was changed a bit, did not violate the U.S. Supreme Court test for signs that you could not use.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Let's see. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
By the way, that is a test that you look at on a case-by-case basis. This ordinance does not change that test in any way.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, we have before us then need a motion to approve the publication of this ordinance. Do we have such a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the publication of the ordinance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion, first and second, second, to pass this, first and second. Do we have any other conversation before we go to the vote? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is it a roll call?
No.
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's in the ordinance.
Say it again.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Motion passes. All right, that was a lot of work, my friends.
Yes.
Let's now move to item E. Item E is a resolution 2025-08-01. A resolution placing the question on the November 4th, 2025 ballot of whether the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque shall establish a 1/4 of 1% Local Economic Development Act option gross receipts tax, otherwise known as LEDA LOGART. We have an opportunity before us, and I will just start the conversation, and I'll turn over to Mr. Avila, and we have Mr. Grant Taylor here to talk a little bit about this issue. We have under the, if you will, the structure of the state as it relates to informing the county clerk of when a item can be put on a ballot for if you will, before the voters. The 26th of August is the date. Recognizing that we are now the 19th, and obviously this is an opportunity to take advantage of the election to put a question to the voters. And so that's what this resolution does. It lets the voters make that decision. I want to start by just having Mr. Taylor talk a little bit about the if you will, the resolution before us, and then obviously then we'll turn it over to you all to have a conversation and decide what we want to do. So, Mr. Taylor, thanks for being here tonight.
And Mr. Mayor, trustees, may I seek some clarification? Do you want me to give some background before we get to the resolution?
I'm sorry?
May I give some background before we get to the resolution?
Yes, please.
Mr. Taylor, excuse me, did you want the overhead at this point?
If that is okay.
Yes.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is your mic on?
It really sounds on.
Okay, great.
Excuse me. It seems to be catching everything. And if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, trustees, I'd like to recognize a colleague in the audience. That's Beth Waldrop. She is a community and regional representative who serves the village of Los Ranchos by way of the Economic Development Department for the state of New Mexico. So what brings me here is that this is a passion project. I've been working directly in or in support of economic development for almost 20 years. In about 2009, I had the realization that many communities do not have a function, a person, whether or a nonprofit, whose job it is to improve the economic well-being of a community. And if they do have an organization or a person, how really well-resourced are they to do that work? And it's really important work. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, some of that is programs, policies, activities to improve quality of life, but especially that you are doing that through improving the economic well-being of a community, and that very often is through creating jobs, retaining jobs, and creating a stable tax base. In New Mexico, we have kind of a narrower definition of what economic development looks like, and that is to create economic-based jobs, those jobs that are wherein a company is exporting goods outside of the state, bringing new dollars in, but over the last dozen years or so, that definition has become a little more inclusive about what economic development looks like. Next slide. So in the 90s, it really became a concern that there wasn't enough economic development growth and there wasn't a lot that government entities could do to support economic development because what was standing in the way was the anti-donation clause. So for the purpose of economic development, there was an exception created, and that exception through the enabling legislation, LEDA, allows the state as well as local jurisdictions to provide public support for those economic development efforts. You all know very well gross receipts taxes. Just very briefly, in the last few years, the state reduced its portion of GRT from 5.125 or 5 1/8 down to 4.875. And whenever you add in the Los Ranchos portion of GRT, that effective rate right now is 7.625. Where my work on trying to help resource economic development, you can go to the next slide, was that I'm not necessarily blazing any trails. We already had a program called LEDA Logart, but at the time that I started to get into this, we were looking at it being about 1/8% for municipalities and 1/16 for counties. And so in 2019, there was a legislative effort to increase those increments for both municipalities and counties. And that was in part thanks to Representative Jason Harper. So if we just move the decimal a couple of places, we can go to the next slide. What does it really mean when we're talking about a 1/4%? That's basically 25 cents per $100 in purchases. And so if you can imagine being in Los Ranchos at an antique store, the sales clerk says, well, you have reached $100 in your purchase. Would you like to chip in an extra 1/4 to support economic development in Los Ranchos? And we can get a little bit more in depth on what economic development means for Los Ranchos in a moment. Next slide. And if Los Ranchos were to enact that 1/4%, what kind of revenue could that create? And on an annual basis, that looks to be about $500,000. And so if there are projects that you have envisioned for 4th Street, for the Agra Nature Center, and some other areas of Los Ranchos, what could you do with about $500,000? I spent 8 years in Hobbs, New Mexico. A stone's throw away from Texas. I served my time in Hobbs. And what I can tell you is that Texas has a very aggressive approach to quality of life and economic well-being. They have, first of all, a sales tax, and second of all, they have an economic development sales tax. The type A is what we very often see in New Mexico, that money being used for land building and infrastructure, but they also have a type B, which is for quality of life. And in Texas, as much as I don't want to compare us to Texas, there's a reason why there are so many people going to Texas. There's a reason that there's so much economic activity in Texas. And there's a reason why, even rural communities have a lot to brag about. And so I'm hoping that we can bring that to Los Ranchos. So I have a list of eligible uses, and this is all according to statute from the Local Economic Development Act from LEDA. And I'll just point to a few highlights. First of all, the land buildings or other infrastructure, grants or subsidies to cultural facilities, and land for a publicly owned cultural facility. And then those eligible recipients on the next slide. Those that manufacture, process, or assemble, and I'd like to highlight agricultural products, but also restaurants and lodgers, and cultural facilities, and then retail businesses. And so imagine a project on 4th Street where you're doing facade improvements, making sure that you're capturing that unique flavor of Los Ranchos. You can go to the next slide. Sure.
Excuse me, Grant. Can you go back that eligible, if you will, list? If you can go back on that slide. But also just maybe because of our community, you're also including farmers markets.
And so that's the eligible
And the
recipients.
eligible, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That's that right there. Farmers markets, cultural facilities. If we do any metropolitan redevelopment, to the extent that we know that we have telecoms looking at investing in Los Ranchos, but if we find ourselves in a need to upgrade some of that infrastructure, et cetera. And then the last piece I would just say, look, I think on the agricultural piece, with our wine community, with the Agri-Nature Center, with what we're doing with our open space, all of those are eligible opportunities for us to develop those in many ways in creating jobs and creating opportunities for who's here already, community businesses that are here to expand and develop. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that this isn't just about bringing new companies in. It's also about investing what we have already.
Thank you, Mayor. And it was mentioned before, but the state did reduce its portion of GRT, which for me, I believe creates a little bit of headroom for communities to consider making a very deliberate investment in economic well-being. Next slide is what the mayor has talked about, is that the soonest that you can consider this or put this before the voters is the November 4th election. And I hope very much that you will put this question to the voters. And the next slide.
Before you go on, I'm sorry, Grant, one more interruption, pardon. If this does not go on this election, the next eligible election is?
The general election of, in 2026, the midterms.
2026.
So, Mayor, if I could ask, so could there be a special election just for this?
So, Mr. Mayor and Trustee, there can be a special election, and if you have not entered into the Local Election Act, you would be able to do it in March of next year, but otherwise you'd be looking at the November 2026 election.
That's good. Sorry.
So you've entered that process by looking to pass this resolution tonight. The ordinance to be considered, next slide, has been blessed by the the State Taxation and Revenue Department. Is it, next slide? Have we hit the end of it? So there is a model ordinance that right now is published on the New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department website, blessed by that department, and one that we are trying to share with jurisdictions around the state so that you would not be alone in trying to do this. We also did provide a model ballot question, tried to get that blessed by the Secretary of State's office. They decided that they would rather defer to each jurisdiction's local council as to the appropriateness of the question. And last thing I'll say before going to questions is that I really believe that Lita Logart brings clarity about how we're able to use taxpayer funds to create our future. So thank you.
And trustees, before we let Grant catch a breath, let me ask you this question, Grant, and then I'll open it up to the trustees. The other legislation that's on the agenda this evening is also the LIDA legislation. That is, can you describe that so that, since they're both related to each other, and so that then, and I know it's not an agenda item for approval, but just so that way you all can see how they both work with each other.
Sure. So first and foremost, by passing a LIDA ordinance, you are making yourself eligible to be a fiscal agent for a state award for a project. You are making it possible that if you want to pull from the general fund, or in this case, if you had a LIDA Logart fund, you would have those resources in order to provide public support for economic development projects. And you saw that there's a very large inclusive list on what is defined as an economic development project. So first of all, LIDA is the mechanism for you to provide public support, and then Lita Logart is how you might resource that public support.
And then to clarify further, the LIDA legislation, from a practical perspective, is just a mechanism to, as I would say, it's our entry into the game, so to speak, in that we would have a mechanism to be a fiscal agent for state LIDA funds that might come available for business expansion, business development. It wouldn't be our local funds. I think at a minimum, in my opinion, as we look at these, that one to me is one that's worth moving forward on, simply because it puts us in the opportunity, if you will, to get state funds. It also requires that we basically develop a plan, a work plan, that would talk about what our priorities are as a community with LIDA funds. The item before us is the actual placing that on the agenda. And then maybe the last question, Grant, is how many communities have actually passed the LIDA grant?
So the Village of Los Ranchos would be adding its name to more than 80 communities, cities and counties that are LIDA communities, that they've passed the LIDA ordinance. In terms of Lita Logart, it's a handful of communities that have stepped up and said that they're going to deliberately, intentionally finance economic well-being in their community.
Okay. Before we let Grant catch breath, is there any questions of Grant from any of the trustees? Thank Grant for taking the time to go through this. I appreciate the update.
I do have a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, George.
So Grant, we in New Mexico, we've often put the cart before the horse on many things that we do. And it seems to me that, and just for your information, I'm part owner of a company that we do LIDA plans for municipalities around the state, and economic development plans and comprehensive plans. And most of the time, in my view, before we go to a tax for LIDA, most of the places I'm familiar with in the state already have a plan, an actual ordinance that specifies what it would include, how it would include it, what the rules are, before we get to the point where we are taxing ourselves for something like that. Could you talk to that a little bit about your experience in this state? Is that in your experience the case? And I know that, one last thing, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Sure.
I know that some economic development plans are as old. I mean, I think the state statute started an economic development plan the statute itself in 1978, I believe. And so there have been a lot of economic development plans around the state, small and large municipalities since then. They weren't called LIDA until later, as I
in the 90s.
Understand it. Yeah, so that's my kind of question about approach.
So I guess I'll start with, it's very evident that we have many communities around the state that have been less intentional with their economic development. They have made sure to pass the LIDA ordinance so that they have some level of preparation in order to field state funds in order to win a project. But I wouldn't say that if they don't have LIDA LOGART, or if they have not made a serious commitment from their general fund, that they're really prepared for the day that a company comes knocking, or some new retail opportunity, let's say along 4th Street. In what we're talking about today, about whether we're putting the cart before the horse, today what's being considered is the resolution that will put this question on the ballot in November. And in the meantime, there will be publication of an ordinance, the LIDA ordinance. You'll have an opportunity to consider the LIDA ordinance, which will include some language about a plan, and then pick up from there to be able to put together a comprehensive plan about how those tax dollars would be transparently, with a great deal of accountability, used for the purposes in Los Ranchos for economic well-being. One of the reasons that I've just for so long been in support of LIDA LOGART is you want your community to have buy-in. And if there is that commitment of that 25 cents for every $100, that your community is going to come back and say, well, we supported you in that. We want to make sure that you're using it in ways that are creating the community that we want.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilor. Trustee Kiefer.
Just one question, and I think I know the answer, but I hate to assume. So I know that the state has lowered their portion of the gross receipts tax, as you explained. So is this essentially reallocation within the same rate, or is this an additional tax upon the gross receipts that we already have?
So in the case of Los Ranchos, what you'd be looking at is something like 7.875 is the effective rate after the enactment of that 0.25%, from where it is right now at the 7.625.
So it is an additional tax.
So when the state reduced its portion that by 0.25%, the effective rate for all of those communities was reduced by 0.25%. There are some communities that haven't backfilled. I understand that Los Ranchos did increase its GRT rate to match the city of Albuquerque. And as you might imagine, I'm also talking to the city of Albuquerque about trying to pass LIDA LOGART. So I hope Los Ranchos will be in good company with Albuquerque and others here in the very near future.
Okay, and thank you. That's what I was curious to.
I think I have one more question, Mayor.
Trustee Ranovich.
When a place, a municipality, puts in place a tax like this, are there limits to when those monies can be spent, not necessarily how, but when. So just hypothetically speaking, we don't have a true ordinance. And what we have in our packet is not really an ordinance. It doesn't go into any detail at all. If we were to pass both of these items on our agenda tonight, are there limits or are there ways that we can use that money before an ordinance is actually approved as a piece of legislation? Does that make sense?
I will try to answer this. So if it is passed in the November 4 election,
Yes.
it will not take effect until July 1 of next year. So now NMTRD is enacting new GRT rates only at July 1 of each year. They're not doing the semi-annual updates.
So if we waited until next year, it would be 2027.
It would take effect July 1 of 2026. And then you'll begin accumulating, you'll be getting those remittances from the state for that portion of GRT. There is guidance in LEDA talking about a fund. And so, there's going to be careful accounting to make sure that you have money in that fund before you spend it. But there's also guidance that says that you can bond against that revenue.
You can bond against that revenue.
And Trustee Branovich and trustees, I think that's really the important also piece to consider is if it's not in this election, and obviously this is the conversation for us to have tonight. If we opt that we think this is planned well enough, the next opportunity for us as a general election would be next year, which means we have to wait another year before the monies are available, and probably wait another year and at least another half year after that to have enough money in the fund to actually do some projects. So we're really talking almost 2.5 if it's not, if we decide that tonight is we don't want to put it in this election. And I think that's just the piece to consider as just we have our conversation. We do have a couple of speakers that have signed up, but if you all have additional questions for
One
Grant,
last,
please
though,
go ahead.
that's related.
Okay.
And I tried to ask it, and I don't think I asked it in the right way. Can that money accumulate over years, not be spent until we have a reason to spend it? Are there limits to how long you can hold that money?
No, it's indefinite.
Okay.
So
All right, Trustee Benavides.
we're going to go into discussion after this, right?
That's right.
Okay, so I don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank
Did
you,
you have any
Grant.
questions of Grant?
I'll wait until.
All right, thank you very much. Don't go too far, my friend. I think we'll probably. Anyway, with that being said, let's go to Danielle, if you can just call our speakers up.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker is Mr. Tom Donilon. If you would, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Rail and trustees. My name is Tom Donilon. I reside at 6668 Edgewood Drive, Northwest. My first would be, there's some confusion, and I would like to ask a question and see if I could get an answer on that. And that is the LEDA Logart funds different and have different criteria than what the LEDA funds do at the state?
I think I can answer that, but I'm going to ask Grant if you can help. The LEDA Logart is the local, if you will, funds that we would put on the ballot, and it would be local funds that we would collect at the village. The state LEDA funds are funds that are appropriated by the legislature for economic development purposes that oftentimes, because economic development occurs at the local level, that communities like Los Ranchos might have, let's say, for discussion, let's say that Vara was wanting to expand its operation in the village, and they applied for economic development funds, the state would, by passing the LIDA Act or the LIDA ordinance, we would be eligible to receive those funds to support the expansion of that business. So they're not there, I mean, money's money, but one is our local funds that we can use locally to develop projects. The state funds are more prescriptive in that they are usually given for a specific purpose for a company or a business.
Right, and that there would be there's different qualifying
That's right.
criteria, okay, which answers one of my questions that I brought up earlier, was that I was concerned that the LIDA Act only doesn't allow for any retail, where these funds would allow for retail. So that's a really good thing. I mean, in general, I like the idea of doing economic planning and putting together and figuring out what wants to, and creating resources from it. The other question that I have is the ordinance written in that it's required? If the voters, the way that it's written, it seems to me that it requires us to do it. It doesn't just give the council, the trustees, permission to do that. Is that correct?
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the ordinance as it's written is for us to, gives the village the ability to write the work plan, et cetera, but it can happen whenever we decide we want to make it happen.
So, I mean, because part of this is one of the things that when we raised the gross receipts tax that was expressed was that we didn't want to be we didn't want to put our retailers at a disadvantage to Albuquerque in terms of doing it, so that if we can do this in conjunction, knowing what's happening, and since taking $500,000 out of our existing budget to do it, that's a real change that if we kept the same rate, we would be taking it out and Albuquerque wouldn't. So that's one of the things that it's to be aware of, is what's the impact. Even though it's probably going to have benefits for our businesses, it also means, how do we get around that? And that was part of my concern in terms of how that happens. So, and it's good because it looks like it says we will impose, is the way I read the ordinance, which would sound like that you're required to put this into place, not that you now have permission to put it into place. So that's an important piece to understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donelan. Next, we have Mr. Hank Kelly. If you would, please approach the podium, state your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees.
Something's wrong with the timer, it appears.
Oh, are we still recording?
I see.
All right, very good. Sorry about that. Hank, go ahead.
Sorry, Hank.
Thanks.
Hi, Mayor, trustees. Hank Kelly, 6900 Rio Grande Boulevard. I'm going to be a naysayer, unfortunately. Less than 8 months ago, the village of Los Ranchos increased the GRT in the village by half a percentage point. A large increase. In making that increase, the board decided not to raise the rate even higher, as then requested by the administration, in part upon the advice of residents, like independent contractors who live here and do business here, but their business is substantially outside of the village, who advised that a rate higher than Albuquerque would cause them great competitive concerns. Now, in less than a year, the administration is proposing to add another 0.25% to our rate, which would make us higher than Albuquerque, even with a rate reduction at the state level. I say, wow. The village is small geographically, and our GRT code, which is 02-200, is small geographically, with zip codes shared by Albuquerque with Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. Many, if not most, of our independent service contractor residents have P.O. boxes outside of the village. And many, if not most, of the non-resident contractor vendors doing business in the village would much prefer to use one GRT tax code to report their taxable receipts. Increasing the village gross receipts tax above that of our largest neighbor will certainly incent coding of Albuquerque to Albuquerque of receipts by our residents who sell services outside the village, by residents making internet purchases, and by non-resident contractors doing business in the village. I suspect the potential revenue loss is substantial. I doubt the administration has had the time to evaluate this potential impact of this.
The speaker's time has expired.
May I finish reading my piece?
Yes.
There? May I?
Yes.
Thank you. I doubt the administration has had the time to evaluate the potential impact of a rate differential imposed by a new LEDA tax. 3, LEDA earmarked tax revenue may not be used for much, if any, of the costs of critical traffic and pedestrian infrastructure and public safety enforcement we desperately need now. And if implemented, will eliminate or drastically reduce the ability of the board to raise general local option property or sales taxes for such purposes in the future. There's just so much milk you can get out of the rock. This proposal at this time, I think, is ill-advised for that reason. Placing on the ballot for Los Ranchos residents to approve a large earmarked tax increase, such as this, without first obtaining our buy-in for the need for the tax and of a thoughtful, detailed use plan, which is usually done before this is placed before the voters, will result again this year in a highly contentious litmus test election right on the heels of 2 prior divisive elections in our political process. I suggest we need to build trust and mutuality among our community now, not create yet another divisive battle. Please do not pass these proposals at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
Mayor and trustees, that concludes public comment.
We'll go back to the trustees on this issue. Let me just make the comments that, or at least clarify a couple of comments just as it relates to this issue. And obviously this is, it's not ever an opportune time to increase taxes. And certainly I am very well aware of that as the mayor and quite frankly, just knowing what happens in Los Ranchos and what happens in Albuquerque. I also recognize that as a community, we have struggled for many, many years. And when I first came upon the scene here in Los Ranchos and began to look at what we've got and what we're doing, we have a lot of projects that we've undertaken and we've started, and with zero funds to get most of them done. We're constantly looking for state grants, looking for the legislature to give us money. We're looking for other outside resources to help get us through some of these projects, which I think is really important, and we should continue to do so because that's important to ensure that we use all our revenues. But when I look at helping our business community, which is really our backbone of our GRT, our gross receipts tax, and looking at getting Main Street underway so that we can continue to support their efforts, I'm left with a question in my mind as to, well, what can we actually do beyond continuing to help get grants from the state for things like facade improvements, et cetera. And in many cases, the legislature, as we heard trustees when we were in Santa Fe, in many cases, legislators asking, what does the local community bring to the table in terms of a match? Do we have a match that we can present that says, we need $1 million and we're willing to put 100,000 of our own dollars, as for example. We oftentimes don't find ourselves in a predicament. We can't even provide the match. And so for me, this opportunity is yes, I know that the trustees and former trustees, maybe some of you were on the council, I know, or on the board when you increased the tax to stay even with Albuquerque. You know, if we're gonna use Albuquerque as our test, you know, we're gonna continue to be behind the 8 ball. What's happening in this region, as I see the tax base both on property tax and on our GRT, is that the communities that are quick to get those in place end up putting everyone else at a disadvantage. And it usually is the smaller communities. Because what happens, as the gentleman just described, if you will, the opportunity for folks to want to increase taxes is overcome by the ability of others that have already increased those taxes. So think about, for example, our property tax. We've got AMAFCA, you've got the Conservancy District, you've got the county, you've got the city, you've got APS, you've got all of these multiple jurisdictions that all rely on property tax. They go to the voters and ask for those increases. The village has consistently kept those low because we want to be conservative. But if we decide that we want to increase the property tax, all the space that's available for us to potentially put a property tax has been taken up by everyone else. And so as a result, we're sitting here with a very low property tax and no funds to do the investments that we all want to do for our community. The GRT is very different in that it is a tax that is paid obviously by the consumers. And as we have talked about for many times, the village is like it or not, we get more traffic flow from other people in the region than we do even from our own community. So in many cases, or in many ways, the GRT is actually paid by and large by people who live outside the village, who are shopping at our stores, et cetera, and providing those revenues. So to me, I propose this to you all, and I will leave it to you all to decide whether this is the right time or not. But I do think we've got to begin to recognize that we need to be bold about some of these issues. If we're going to invest in ourselves, we got to start at some point. And I recognize that it's not always in a nice box should we have a plan first? And then should we have that plan? Well, the GRT, the low GART GRT has specific requirements. It's not like it's not like a general tax that's going to go for all of operations. It specifically says what uses it can be used for. So our plan would be around those uses anyway. So in my opinion, it's a very specific tax, and I do like the ability to have the citizens make that choice as necessarily as rather than an elected body. But again, to me, this is why I brought this forth to have this conversation. And I recognize that we have an election and that we have other issues on the table, but I just want to make sure that the community members that are listening and all of you know that for me, it's about creating an opportunity for the village to continue to prosper and to invest its funds in things like one of our speakers said earlier about preservation, about helping our local businesses expand and grow, about fixing our agri-nature center so that it becomes a viable economic opportunity for the community. And all of those types of facilities that we know that we could use some of these funds for. However, I also recognize that as a governing board, you all get to weigh in on this conversation, and I'm more than happy to listen to that and hear your concerns about this. So with that, I will go to Trustee Benavides.
Oh, do we need to do a motion still?
Sure, let's go to a motion. Do we have a motion to approve resolution 0250801?
Motion, go ahead, you do it.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-0801.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll open it up for discussion. Trustee.
Thank you for letting me go before you, because I think you might follow up with some of the things I might say. So I think it was over a year ago when we did the increase in the GRT, but I don't know if it was, Hank Kelly said it was 8 months, but maybe it was. I don't recall any businesses coming in and complaining about that increase. I was the one who argued very strongly that we do not increase it above the GRT to be above Albuquerque's GRT. And you know, I understand the argument, 25 cents over $100. It's not much, but people say, well, it's a psychological thing. It's like, okay, you know, why would I go to Los Ranchos to buy a hamburger and have to pay a higher tax, right? You know, they don't bother thinking about how little that is. So I want to throw that out there, and I want to also tell you that I recall people coming in here and saying we need another mill levy on our property tax, and I think that would be the public would not like that at all. I think the overwhelming majority of people would say no to that. So now here we are thinking about doing a 0.25% increase. And will that put us above what Albuquerque is charging for GRT? Perhaps it will. The only thing that causes me to say I think it's a good thing is that we are putting it up to the voters. Now, I have not heard from the business community at large, and you might be able to speak to that. I've talked to one business about it on 4th Street and explained that this GRT was an investment in the businesses, and that person was all for it, you know, but that's just the one person that I talked to. So the other thing that I would bring up is we're standing up a Main Street committee, and we need to fund that somehow. And so I think if the businesses understand that this is an investment in them, I mean, they're the ones that are sticking their necks out here, right? They're the ones that will suffer if the customers go away. But if they believe that this money has very specific restrictions on it, is going to help them, I think they'll be okay with that. Now, if there's a outrage by the businesses, they need to, you know, not all business owners are residents, but they need to talk to the residents and say, vote no, you know, but I haven't heard that yet. So I think that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Kiefer.
Thank you for your comments, Trustee Benavides, because as the kind of the board representation of Main Street Board, or the Los Ranchos Economic Development, because it's not a Main Street project yet, as the sitting board member, you're kind of still in my thunder because this was going to be an informal discussion, but a board was just voted in a week and a half ago, and they're very prominent businesses in the community, and I'm excited to share who they are, and I will during informal. But have they been asked? No, because the board was just formed. But I can tell you that the excitement, the attendance for the meeting, the excitement of working with Magda, she's here as the executive director for the Los Ranchos Economic Development Committee, is there. We're in the momentum. And to stall that momentum is kind of scary to me. I'm with you. You know, I'm the champion of Main Street, or trying to get us to a Main Street. It's something that I've believed in, of helping those businesses. The fact that this is a resolution to the voters, I think there's, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think the voters should have the opportunity to weigh in. Because as the gentleman said, you know, if the community is supporting the tax increase, it's because they're behind the economic development and they see the vision. Now, where I am going to be very cautious is I'm going to use the bumper blocks in the ordinance to make sure that it's truly used, to protect the identity of the village and not a loophole where we can get in, massive development and high urbanization, really trying to refocus what is that 4th Street going to look like? How are we going to help these businesses? And so for those reasons, I want to support the gross receipts tax, see what the villagers say about it and let them be the decision makers. But I can't necessarily say the businesses are all for it because we don't know, because it's in the infancy stage. But I don't, I think the excitement of having village support for the businesses is there. And so if we had the capital to support that excitement, would just help really increase the participation and the forward movement.
All right. Trustee Radovich.
Mayor, I really appreciate your kind of pushing some new ideas towards the board. I think it really shows your commitment to who we are as a place and who Los Ranchos is and maybe even wants to be in the future. But I think that this kind of way of doing business with the board it happens all the time. It happened with the past 3 administrations, and it's many of the things that we talk about need to be decided upon now. It was the same with the ICIP. It's been the same in the past for other ventures that we've discussed and voted on. So that part of this I am upset by because I think we need to discuss things before we actually vote on them. They come to us like that, but I do appreciate who you are and what you're trying to do. I'm not as concerned about the property tax as I am about the actual plan. We're voting on funding a plan that, we're voting on funding for a non-plan. We don't have a plan. We don't have an economic development plan. We're not sure what this money would go towards. It could be Bar Winery, it could be any number of things, but we don't have something that specifies that. Typically, when you do a plan, and I wrote some notes to myself, so bear with me, sorry. Let me get to it. Typically, when you do a plan, you have some ideas about what you're supporting. And in this particular case, we don't know what the goals are. We don't know what our process is. We don't know what the village will offer, and we don't know the types of projects we're supporting. So, when I do something at home, using that as an analogy, I'll have a plan before I start thinking about the money, and then I work into the money that's needed to support it. And so that bothers me a bit, that we don't have a plan first. It's the reason I asked the question about could we have a special election? Because I sure would like to know what we're voting on before we publish, especially when it comes to raising taxes. And like I said, I don't think a 1/4 cent tax is, if Mayor Chavez hadn't had a quarter-cent tax in Albuquerque for the biopark, there would be no biopark down there. So I get that. And that was wholeheartedly passed, and that tax went into place for, I believe, 10 years, 8 to 10 years, before the biopark actually even was built. But there was a plan in place. And so that is my worry about this, that we're voting on, we don't really know what we're voting on. We don't have the process identified. We don't have the plan identified. We don't have the types of projects identified. And I usually do that first and then figure out how we fund it. So that's my concern.
All right, appreciate that. I'll have some comments, but let me go to Trustee Reno for his perspective.
Trustee Ranovich, I mean, I had some of the same concerns, okay? In projects that I've done, again, the last part of the project is how you fund it, okay? But I've got another concern, and that is with the time frame that we have, excuse me, that we need to have an opportunity for the public to weigh in publicly so that they understand what this tax is about. And that may mean that we need to schedule at least a meeting or two to explain what is, what LIDA is, because I'm sure that a lot of folks may not know about it. And my concern is that it gets to the ballot box and people do not understand what they're voting for. Okay? And so I think that there needs to be some clarity around what is going to be, what the use is for this money, as well as a process that's going to take place in order to define what the uses are, and not go in there thinking that it's going to be potentially a done deal. And the public as they are, you can't tell. You just can't tell. But to comments about the fact that we've already passed a increase in the GRT, people may then just say, well, you've already increased it within the last year, and may decide just to vote no, which I think in many ways can set us back from being able to move forward. I certainly understand the rationale for this, totally do, and understand how it can create opportunities for businesses in the village. But I think that we need to also think about what the response is going to be from the public until we actually get an opportunity to hear from them.
Okay, well, all fair points and appreciate the conversation. Let me make just two comments, just because I think it's important, again, for the community to appreciate this. I think, Trustee Ranovich, you were who was not on the board when you increased the tax to equal Albuquerque's?
We were all on the board.
So was there a plan to show the community of what we were going to do with a half-cent gross receipts tax increase? Good point.
No, but it wasn't about a plan.
All right, this is not a debate. I'm just sort of making a point.
Yeah.
Look, when we increase gross receipts tax for general government, I don't see the public coming in and saying, wait a minute, what are you going to fund and not fund? We make a decision to fund and to use the tax for the purposes of general government, which means everything from funding, open space projects to staff to accountants, et cetera. This particular tax, in my opinion, to just counter your point, is so much more prescriptive that it really already has a plan in terms of how it's set up just by state statute. So in order to just make the analogy is that we've passed taxes before without a plan, and it was done. Here we have a tax that the voters get to vote on, that is very prescriptive in terms of how its funds can be utilized, in terms of supporting and developing and investing in our community. And then secondly, Trustee Renow, just look, it's a campaign. We certainly have the next 2 months to make the case to the community that this is the right thing to do for the community and go out and have conversations. And I'm prepared to do that and to use as much time as we need to go out and talk to the community and say, look, this is about making sure that the Agri-Nature Center really works better for us. This is about, as I said before, that our businesses on Main Street get an opportunity to thrive and to develop. And that if, think about the El Camino Hotel. We've talked about how amazing of a project that is. Imagine if we were able to tell a developer, look, how about we put some money into that investment to help be the, if you will, the kickstart to the project. Those are the kinds of things that I see an opportunity for us to do with this tax. But I agree with all of your comments in that this is about letting the citizens make that decision. And if we're not good enough to be able to sell this issue to the community and they say no, I'd rather be on that side of the conversation than be on the side of saying, well, we could have done this, but we decided we were concerned about the politics of it. And look, I'm not criticizing any of you on that. I've had that same conversation with myself on several times going up and down the street. I'm more interested in saying, look, let's let the community make the decision. Let's give them the information, let's give them what we've got, and say, look, if you all think that this is the right investment, let's make the right investment. And I would say the last piece that I really want to make sure that for all of us, I don't want this tax to be a divisive issue within this community. We've already had one, and to compare this issue to that is not fair. Look, I think this issue is about getting the community energized to invest in itself and to recognize that we have opportunities and we have some needs that we've got to meet. If we don't do a good enough job selling that, then we'll live with the decision and we move on. But I do think that it's that as I think Trustee Kiefer said, I think to me the timing is right in that we have some energy around all of us collectively working together and a business community that seems to be really excited about having opportunities to grow and develop.
Mayor, may I ask a question? And I hate to root, because you just did a fabulous job, but this is a silly question, and it may be more for you, I don't know. What percentage of votes do we need to get it to pass? Is there a percentage, and does there have to be a certain amount of turnout based on village size?
I would suspect that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, you've done this in some communities, it's just a simple majority.
Okay.
So the majority of the voters, if they approve it, just like our previous initiatives with the voters, if they approve the tax, then it would go into effect, obviously, in July.
The language is positive referendum, majority not requiring 2/3 or anything like that.
Perfect, thank you.
I just have a couple of things to say about what you said, Mayor. That past tax was general purposely. So it's not really a fair comparison to compare this for a specific thing to something that was, the reason we raised that tax was because the state lowered the tax and it gave us an opportunity. And we looked at other municipalities and including Corrales and the city, and I believe Bernalillo County was one of them, maybe Bernalillo, I can't remember. But it was purposely a general tax. It wasn't for something specific. This is for something very specific. And so I do like what Trustee Rhinow said about the public. If we planned, and John, I don't know how long we need, and Danielle, this might be a question for you too, how long we might need to get it in the works, but there's not much time between now and November. And I think I could be convinced to vote yes for this if we had public meetings at least two, like Trustee Rhino said, between now and that voting day to hear what the people have to say. This came to us today. I mean, it came to us actually last Thursday. And again, I appreciate you being creative about your thinking about things like this, Mayor. I really do. But it's a very quick turnaround on something that just came to us. And so, if I could just finish though, if we could get at least two public meetings in that allow the public to, allow our residents to hear about this, I think that would be a really positive step if we end up voting yes for this as a group.
I would say, Trustee Ranovich, and for the community, look, that's what the campaign's about, right? Is giving them an opportunity to come and weigh in and get informed on why we are putting this on the ballot and asking them to weigh in on a decision that would otherwise be a decision that this board can make. So to that point, I would say, sure, let's have some meetings, let's have some conversation. As I said to you, at least I'm prepared to go out and have a conversation with the community. And if you all are thinking that you want to have a structured meeting, shall we say, in the middle of September or something that says, come here, what the ideas and the plan is for this tax and get informed, I think that is certainly an opportunity for us to have that conversation.
One other thing, Mayor, and excuse me for just one more minute or two, Trustee Kiefer. Shauna, how long does a economic development plan typically take? Could we come up with some basic guidelines that help describe what the process is going to be, what we're really talking about in terms of economic development? I don't think I've ever heard of a motel or a hotel being part of an economic development plan. I could be wrong. Typically, it's about businesses that are trying to sell their retail goods outside of this place, like Los Poblanos does with their lavender. So would you have enough time to come up with some ideas for what this would go towards that we could then bring to the public at these meetings?
Mayor and Trustee, yes. I think there are a lot of models around the state that have already thought this through, and so I don't know that we would necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. We should maybe chisel it away a little bit to make it specific to Los Ranchos, but a plan of this nature and some basic guardrails, which is what I hear us talking about, that is not a complicated ask in my mind.
Okay. And just for your information, Trustee Ranovich, if you look at the whereas clauses on the lead qualifying entities, are restaurants and lodgers. So you can have an incentive, if you will, funds to help revitalize hotels and those sort of things.
Shauna, could you speak to that? Because I saw you shaking your head yes about retail goods outside of here as opposed to a hotel or a motel.
Mayor and Trustee, I believe that the list that this speaker had was pretty exhaustive of all the kind of land uses we would think about that could use these funds, and lodgers are included, so hotels, retailers, manufacturing, I think is the most common one that you see across the state that these funds be used for. But that's all already in statute. That's not decided by us locally.
Thanks, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? If not,
Yeah, just real quick.
I'm sorry, Trustee.
So George, we were left with an envelope the last time, at last BOT meeting that talks about.
Oh, yes, I did read it.
Okay.
I have it with me.
So it may not be fair to say that we were able to grasp everything in here for a whole month, but we've known about it for a while, right? Oh. So it sounds to me like the mayor is willing to commit to 2 public meetings to educate the public and maybe solidify the vision and plan a little bit better, right?
Right.
Okay.
That is correct.
Could I ask one more thing? I mean, I'm sort of formulating an amendment here. And Danielle, this is kind of a question for you. I like where we're going with the discussion, but I'd like to have this discussion with the public and all of the trustees. So can we have a meeting to talk through all of this with both the trustees and the public between now and sometime in September, when we might have that first, maybe it is the first public meeting. Could you talk to that a little bit?
Mayor and trustees, just to clarify, what's in front of you tonight is the resolution to place the question on the ballot.
Yes.
So this just says we're going to put this on the ballot for the November meeting. The November election, okay? Thereafter, should you choose to have public meetings, and Mayor has committed to do so, that's great. But this in front of you is just approving the resolution to get this question on the November 4th ballot.
But the next item is the economic development plan itself.
So the next item, ordinance 304, is for publishing and advertising that Los Ranchos wants to commit to develop a plan in the execution of such funds.
Right. So
to follow your I think where you're going is the absent this, putting this issue aside for a minute, the LIDA ordinance requires, again, tonight, just a vote to publish. We will have a meeting at the end of September, excuse me, to actually adopt the ordinance. If we want to have a community conversation about that ordinance that dovetails into this resolution, I am happy to have that conversation and happy to have if you will, a study session or an open house, whatever we want to describe this, so that we can meet the Open Meetings Act as it relates to all of us being together. But yeah, that is certainly, and look, again, we're gonna have that other hearing on the 23rd, if I recall, is that the date for the next meeting. So we're gonna have at least one hearing already on the LIDA piece, and we could have a study session. And let me just add to what Shanna said. We've looked at the Corrales ordinance. Our good friend here, Mr. Avila, was the administrator in Corrales that when this was adopted. To be candid with you, if you looked at the Corrales ordinance and just changed the names and protect the innocent, it is exactly almost verbatim with some minor exceptions what we all want to do in the village. It's about agriculture, it's a rural lifestyle, it's all those things that we want. So there are some models out there that we could use in a discussion as you've suggested.
But we don't want to be Corrals. But I don't want to debate it.
No, I understand.
I'm not really debating anymore.
I understand.
I'm agreeing with you. I think we're on the same page.
Okay. You better stop. You better call the question here.
So if I could make a friendly amendment to, I don't even remember who did the motion.
Trustee Kiefer.
Trustee Kiefer, if I could make a friendly amendment that we add to the motion that we include 2 public meetings and a first draft of the ordinance with some teeth in it over the coming 2 months.
Mayor and trustee, I'm sorry
Before we go on,
to
there's a
interrupt.
point of order here because of the way this is written. If I might just
Go for it.
If I might just ask you to maybe hold that amendment for the LIDA
For the next one.
ordinance, and let's pass this because it's got to be a clean ordinance to take to the county clerk to put on the ballot, and then we'll come back and add your amendment to the LIDA ordinance that will trigger the 2 meetings and the discussion on a structure.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's why I was gonna reject it. So,
Anyway, so having said that, I think we've beat this pretty good. I would ask our clerk to please read the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Rhino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
First,
Mayor,
let me-
Mayor, the,
Thank you.
the pony came in, now we have a dead horse.
All right, let's
Thank you.
now, thank you. We are now in item, catch me up there, Miss, item F, is that correct? Yes. Item F, ordinance 34, or 304, excuse me. An ordinance to adopt through the Local Economic Development Act, LEDA, to develop a plan to implement the authority provided by the NMSA 1978, sections 5-10-1 to 5-10-13, providing standards, criteria, and procedures for evaluating economic development proposals, providing for the village trustees' approval by ordinance of specific economic development projects and projects participation agreements recommended to the trustees by the village administration, approved for publishing and advertising. So this is, we need a motion to approve this. Do we have a motion?
You can do it with the amendments, right?
Yeah.
Sure, let's,
Yeah.
okay, let's, this is the title, so I think that we just have to approve at least putting it on the table and then the amendments.
And then put in
afterwards?
the
And then
amendment.
afterwards, yeah.
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve the LEDA ordinance for publishing.
Motion to approve ordinance number 304 for publishing.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been seconded? All right, now we're for discussions. This is where the amendment, if I'm not mistaken, could be included.
And thank you, Mayor, and I'm discussed out, so I would also like to make an amendment to the motion, which would be that we have a straw man, or at least a start to an ordinance with goals, process, and what types of projects we might support, as well as 2 public meetings between now and voting day.
Now, do I have to accept that, or what?
That would be certainly an amendment that would need a second before it's actually, you don't have to accept it, just amendment to your.
It's a friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment. Do we have a second of the amendment?
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. All right, let me just make sure we're clear on what the amendment is so that, but actually, I will, if I may, trustees, let's put your amendment on hold for a second because I was informed by Danielle that we do have a couple of speakers, and I want to make sure we give them an opportunity to weigh in before we get too far ahead. And so, Danielle, would you please call the speakers up?
Thank you, Mayor. Our first individual is Mr. Tom Donilon. You have 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening again, Mayor and trustees. My name is Tom Donilon. I reside at 6668 Edgewood Drive Northwest. And I guess, again, there's more questions that I have here than answers, is that the specifics of what the LEDA Act is about industrial, and that's really focused on selling goods outside. That's what the state funds are for. It's my understanding from my earlier, what the gross receipts tax has more ability to do things that fit within, like retail, which the LEDA Act funding that this is designed to set up ways to evaluate those proposals is set up. So there's a difference between those two. But it would also think it could easily meld into that this is a group that does a whole economic development plan that does more than just the LEDA Act funding from the state, but it could talk about the whole thing, which I think is something that the village would be very good for. It would help us, would be able to support the Main Street and retailers. So in terms of doing and pulling together that I would really support it, especially if it's looking at more than just what could come from state LEDA funds and projects that would be approved for that, because those would be probably few and far between. But it's great to be able to have that in place should something come up that deserves that. But I think what I'm hearing, the way this resolution, this ordinance is really talking specifically about the LEDA funding and not talking, it's not broadened beyond that. So I would encourage considering
The
adding an
speaker's time has
amendment
expired.
to expand what its focus is beyond just the funding for evaluating LEDA proposals, but in value. And it would seem at that point, the meetings talking about a development plan would then fit with it. Where right now, it's talking about just a really small piece of it and not the whole thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Thank you, Tom. Our next speaker is Mr. Hank Kelly. Decline? Thank you. That concludes.
Let me suggest, Trustee Ranovich, on that amendment, as you look at the resolution that's before us, and obviously this is for publication, and so we want to include your amendment. In section 2, the village staff is hereby authorized to do all the deeds necessary in the performance of this actions authorizing herein and set forth in the Economic Development Act. That may be a place where we insert your amendment that just simply says, defines the deeds necessary as, and then include the amendment as you've described that. Bill, would that be an appropriate place in that it would be included in the actual delivery of, if you will, of a plan or of a work product?
Yeah, Mayor, I think that would be an appropriate amendment to the ordinance that could be inserted before publication.
Okay, so could you just make sure we are clear on what your amendment is? And I would ask, because I know of your immense expertise and background in architecture, that goals and objectives and those sort of things are certainly part of a plan. But I do think that what we want to say is at the higher level of saying a plan that may, and then go with your amendment, if you read between the lines of what I'm trying to get at.
So I would propose that in section 2 on page 173 of our ordinance, that the village staff is hereby, that it be changed to state, the village staff is hereby authorized to do all deeds necessary, including establishing goals, processes, and inclusions of this economic development plan, and that a second sentence be added that states between now and November 4th, the village offer to our residents 2 public meetings to discuss this plan and have those before the voting day. Did I miss something?
No, as long as
that may need a little bit of wordsmithing.
Yeah. I think what I would suggest, just because it's a living document, that rather than reference the November 4th election, that in the drafting of these goals and objectives, that the village staff be given the direction to have 2 meetings. And the only reason for that is that once the ordinance is passed and it's codified, the November 4th ballot next year is not going to mean anything. So, in other words, it's because they would have already, because it's an ordinance, not a resolution. And so my suggestion would be is that we know the intent is to have 2 meetings. We're having one on the 23rd, so we've already met you halfway. And so we'll have another one before that. to have that conversation in mid-September. So if we could just take the November election piece off of your amendment and just simply say, again, that the village will start at deeds necessary, including goals and processes and inclusions of the economic development plan. A new sentence would say, and the village staff is directed to offer to residents a public meeting or two public meetings within the next, in developing this plan.
Discussing the LEDA plan.
Discussing the project.
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Add, sorry.
That's
May
right,
I add one word
Sure.
to that? Is not only authorize the deeds necessary in, I know he captured like, the plan, but also add the word protections.
For sure, preservation and protection.
And that way we're setting the guardrails already with what staff thinks, but we can tweak those guardrails with public opinion.
Okay. Do we all understand that, the amendment? And
Danielle, did you get that?
Danielle, did you get that? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sorry, man.
All right, it's been moved and seconded for an amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Amendment's adopted. Do we have any other discussion on this ordinance? Again, it's for publication only purposes. So with that said, do we need a roll call vote on this? No? All those in favor of publishing the ordinance as amended signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Wow. All right. We are now on item G. Is that right, my friends? All right. Approve the delegation of authority of the mayor and the administrator to negotiate and enter into an agreement for the village to release a portion of the judgment liens on 7622 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest. We need a motion for approval.
A motion to approve the delegation of authority to the mayor to negotiate and enter an agreement for the village to release a portion of the judgment liens on 7622 Rio Grande Boulevard.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Oh, sorry.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Wow, that moves us now to item 9, our reports from our chief financial officer and from our administrator. So our friend, Ms. Tammy, has been very patient. Thank you very much. Tammy.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and trustees. Before you is the cash report for July 31st, 2025. The ending cash balance was $14,409,657.39, which was an increase from last month of $102,207.56. Because we just started the new fiscal year, the year-to-date excess of revenue over expenditures is the same. And you will also note that the unusual or significant items for the month, we started the new fiscal year, which also came with paying some of our larger expenses for some of our annual payments and quarterly payments for IGA to Bernalillo County, as well as premiums for our self-insurers fund and a few other items there.
All right. Any questions of Ms. Silva?
I have none.
Very good. Thank you, Tammy, very much.
Have none.
None? Okay. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to Mr. Avila. And he's got some great opportunities, great conversations for us to have tonight.
Mayor, Board of Trustees, we have the reports here, and I'll leave those to you. I'd like to point out that in these reports, for instance, code enforcement, Forest has had great success in investigating code compliance, and that has helped out in some big situations that we've had, so I kudos to him. Public Works, Keene, followed through in Mexico DOT grant for electric vehicle charging stations, and this is the fast charge stations for over $750,000 million there, 766,000 for installation of these charging stations on 4th Street at the Del Norte open space. And that was determined in the application based on a number of factors that DOT had, including population, salary levels, income, that sort of thing, but also traffic, and then how close other EV stations are. So they did a number of factors in saying that we were eligible. Glad we were able to accept that and bring that that project to the village here in the next few years. We do have the funding approval, and we'll get started on that planning and putting it in. National Night Out, I got to kudos to Fred. From last year, we had one neighborhood watch program for National Night Out, and he's increased that. That we had several visits to National Night Out on August 5th. And that doesn't even include all the neighborhood associations' participation in public safety and keeping an eye out for your neighbor. Some of the, again, the code enforcement, we've been able to get a stipulated injunction on a particular property, and that will allow us to get it cleaned up. And then we've also had another filing for another particularly bad project here as of today. So we're getting some movement on those. At the Agri-Nature Center, we have a public charter school, the Sign Language Academy, and their students that also work at the YCC, which is Youth Conservation Corps, had dozens of youth there conducting projects and getting integrated into a partnership program with the Agri-Nature Center and the Growers Market, and have their presence at those as well. So I want to call those out on staff reports. I'd like to mention from my report that Mayor Rael and Commissioner Barbara Baca have been able to get some funding to support an executive director, which is introducing Magda Martinez Baca for the Main Street program. She's hit the ground running. She's visited with a number of businesses on 4th Street, introduced herself, and part of that introduction is our participation in the Globitos portion of the Balloon Fiesta, which is set for, let's see if I have this right, October 6th, and that's going to be from 7 to 9, but they'll get started setting up a little earlier than that. So keep your eyes open for more about that. We're looking at the City of Albuquerque services for the unhoused. There's been questions about what else can we do for folks here in the village that have had those issues. And we're looking at that agreement to bring back to the board, and that does help our BCSO and other folks to help out these individuals that are in that situation. We plan to start the village green waste drop-off again, September 11th, and that's in coordination with Waste Management and Soillutions. And we've presented the data on that before, but we're having impact as far as methane gas and that equivalent carbon by taking tons of green waste out of the cycle. Also, we've had solid waste management services from Waste Management for a few years, and over time, our contract it's about time that we have to go out to an RFP and see what services are out there, and Waste Management is aware of that and is ready to post for that RFP as well. And with that, stand for any questions.
Trustees, let me just put 2 points, I think, on the table that I think are worth and John and the staff have been really, really busy. One is this court hearing that we had on these, on one property, and the pending court action, hopefully that will come for the other property. You all, us as the representatives of this community have been dealing with this issue for a long time. And so I just want to commend Fred and John, and quite frankly, even Shanna was in the conversation along with Bill and others. Look, we all hear about these issues, and I think it's really at least recognition that the staff actually moved on these, and that we're hopefully going to be at a point where we're actually going to make a difference for those neighbors on two projects that have been a problem for a long time. The other piece is having, and I know that Trustee Kiefer will talk a little bit more about this, but this effort with the Balloon Fiesta is really why I get excited about things that we're doing. And why, to me, asking the community to support stuff is because these are the kinds of opportunities we have to create our own semi-lavender fest. I mean, look, after being in the city for many, many years and watching the Balloon Fiesta be a part of Albuquerque, to me, this is a nice little niche about how the village can be part of the fiesta. It's a big event, and we're working hard to stay to the task because it is going to be very popular. It's the day that is free at the state fair. I mean, at the fiesta. It's a free day at the fiesta, and so this event is the smaller, if you will, remote control balloons that are obviously tethered, but I think it'll be a much stronger attraction for children and their parents because they get to see live how these things can go up and down, and it's much more interactive than just simply balloons are fun, and no question we all like that. But here you have actually not quite toy size, but they're 20 feet tall, but long and but I'm excited for the opportunity for the business community and for us to have an event that really showcases what we can do as a community. So for me, those two are really important. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more that we can talk about, but anyway, with that being said, are there any other questions or any thoughts for John? Okay, Mr. Go ahead, George Brenovich.
Sorry, Mayor.
Sorry.
I really think that I'm happy about the neighborhood that you talked about and us moving it forward. And thank you, John and Shauna, about for that, because it's really been lagging for way too long. And Fred, sorry. So I was happy to hear that. I have an idea for the Globito.
Let's hear it.
And I just thought of this yesterday, actually. You know, there are some communities, I believe in South America and others in China, that release these like floating, in Mexico, they're little candles inside of balloons. Mm-hmm. I know there's some issues with those because of the fire hazard, but there's so many little lights coming to us from outside of this country now that are pretty cheap. Wouldn't it be great to have a little, like a little hot air, little rising balloons that kids could launch besides the model balloons, and really have a spectacular or potentially spectacular kind of sky watch associated with that. Just thought of it last night when I read about the Globitos. So, anyway.
On that note, I will just say to you, stay tuned for an opportunity that we might be able to cultivate on exactly what you're describing.
Oh.
But we will have more conversation. It's not ready for prime time. It's certainly something worth having. Okay.
Nice.
All right. No questions for.
A lot of great.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Trustee Benavides.
So just to comment about the hot air thing. I used to do hands-on science for Los Ranchos Elementary, and you could get this painter plastic, right, and tape it up, and with a hair dryer you can launch balloons.
Oh,
Yeah, so that, I mean, something like that, and I don't know, you have something else in mind.
You're hired.
Okay, the kids love that stuff. All right,
Nice.
so questions for you. In the, on page 193 in the reports, there's something about John Wright and connected to small internships. What is that about? Page 193. I'm not even there yet.
Oh, right there.
ANC staff met with John Wright about the possibility of small internship program.
Yeah, I don't have that information. John Wright was my father-in-law, by the way, not the same John Wright, so.
I worried you there for a minute.
Yeah. Good guy. And he was a rocket scientist. So if he was doing that, that'd be great. He's no longer with us. I don't have this, particular information.
Somebody could send me an email, I suppose. This is the Agri-Nature report?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, next question. Page 194. I didn't quite understand, let's see. Project expected to bid in September of 2025. What is the scope of that project?
This is 4th Street?
Yeah, 4th Street, yes. Page 194.
Right, well, this is 4th Street Phase 2, I believe, is what this is.
2A.
Okay, so that's the scope, is Pueblos?
Yes, it's.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it is for the, includes the construction?
Yes.
This is relocating 14 poles off-site right away in this time period. So there's utility movement, and this is those poles that are on the sidewalk in our right-of-way that would need to be moved.
Well, I mean, I don't know, it's the last bullet, and it's phase, 2A to 2C, but Pueblo Solano to village limits, right? I just, the bullet says there's a project expected to bid in September of 2025, which is like next month, and I didn't know what the scope of that was.
So this is the 4th Street revitalization project, right? And the way the project is structured, and Maria obviously can give you more of a detail, but she had the infrastructure piece as the first phase of the project, which is the utility poles and the water and sewer and all that, if you will, underground infrastructure that needs to be done as one phase. And then the next phase would be actually the letting of the contract to actually begin the actual redevelopment work. So,
Okay, so you think this RFQ is just for the infrastructure?
It's just for the infrastructure piece
Okay.
of it.
All right. On page 195, next one over, there's at the top, again about 4th Street. This project has been shelved. I'm not sure what has been shelved.
Let me look at that real quick.
Is that the signage one?
That one sort of seems to be hanging out there. I don't know that that one is one that we probably need to get more information, John. I think it may have been she was retyping this and accidentally left the.
Okay.
Let us review that and we'll get back.
You can get back with me, that's fine. That's all I have, thank you.
I will say, though, to I think Trustee Ranovich made a comment that we should, you all should know, the entire sort of, if you will, columns and what do we describe those as?
Territorial style, I guess.
Yeah, those are on hold. I think we need to have more conversation with the community about what might be more appropriate if you will.
Are you talking about monument signs?
Monument signs, those sort
Okay.
of things, yeah. So, anyway, any other questions of John? All right. Then we'll move on to open mic night. Open mic night.
Open mic.
Trustee reports. We'll start with trustee right now, because he's been very quiet all night, so we'll start with you, if you're okay with it.
So I guess the one area that I've been monitoring, and I wanted to give kudos to Fred because he's been extremely helpful here, are the traffic issues that have come around with Schulte, on Schulte to feed Taft, or, excuse me, it's no longer Taft. It's they've already changed the name. Yeah, and Taylor Middle School. And so it appears that the traffic from Fourth on to Schulte has been addressed. And there are still some lingering issues about traffic off of the streets into Taylor. But it's certainly a lot more improved than what we had initially thought was going to be happening. You know, so, and it certainly appears that APS is willing to talk about some other options in order to get traffic off the street quicker, in order to better serve the students and families. Not as much of not as difficult in the morning, but it's a bit more time consuming in the afternoon when you have all these kids in the queue waiting to get home. But again, thanks, Fred, for your participation and your leadership on that.
Okay. We'll go now to trustee Kiefer.
So I just have a couple things. One is awesome job to everybody, staff, Fred, mayor, on the National Night Out. That was a great success. I went to Edgewood Park is where I kind of hung out for the evening, and you know, it was great turnout. People were flowing in and out, and it was nice to just kind of see the community get out there and get to know one another. So awesome job for that. The other thing is, I wanted to say, I don't know if any of you got one of these, but I got the lucky ticket. Easy Fiber is going to be in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
Did you get it?
I guess they're probably starting at the south end, since I'm at the very south end of the village. And so I have questions that maybe, John, you and I can kind of talk about. Because one of them, in reading this, it essentially says, you know, we're going to start doing things, we're bringing this to you, we're going to have paint flags out, you're going to have door hangers, which that's going to be interesting how they may be able to do that in the village, considering a lot of properties are behind gates. And the crews will arrive within 2 to 5 days. Construction will get messy, or may get messy, sorry. So appreciate your patience, and we will restore any disturbed property to its original condition. Restoration will take 10 to 14 days, but try your sprinkler system after we're done to make sure you don't have any leaks. But one of the questions that I had is, I know there was conversation of which easements they were using. And so I'm kind of curious, since obviously I'm going to be the guinea pig area, if we can find out whether it's underground or if it's going to be the power lines or the utility poles. And then I guess my next question is, do they take this onto private easements, or are they staying on public?
John?
And not that you need a response right now, but that's just kind of some of the questions I'm starting to get from people in the area.
Well, John, for mailing an answer, can you give us, if you don't mind, parting with that document? I would certainly like to see this. At least we can get it back to you. I would say, John, this is exactly the conversation we had with them, that they would inform the village before they started this process.
Oh,
That didn't happen.
So, well, they indicated to us, and I don't want to steal John's thunder too much, but what they indicated to us is that they were going to start at one end of the village and move north.
okay.
Most of what they're doing is going to be on existing utility poles, so not a lot of, especially on 4th Street. So, however, we indicated to them that when they had a plan in place that they had to bring it to us before they actually, so it sounds to me like they're preparing the plan and preparing the residents before they prepared us.
Well, I'll let you know if I
So-
start seeing their trucks.
So we need to have a conversation with them tomorrow morning. Bill, if you and John can get on the horn with them and just indicate to them that this is not the way we rolled the plan out. I don't have a problem with them notifying neighborhood, but the plan was to let us know so that we would not be having to answer your question on the spot, but have, hey, here's the whole plan, here's how it's gonna roll out.
Sure.
So I do appreciate you bringing this, for sure. I don't know. Yes, please.
You're gonna hold on to it?
I'm gonna have, and I'll make a copy for that. Go ahead, John, I'm sorry if you have anything else to add.
I have not seen that.
But thanks for bringing that.
Sure, sure. I felt special, and so I wanted to see who else was special.
You must be a high customer.
Right. High utilizer, I use my internet. The other thing that I wanted to share, and I kind of alluded to this a little earlier, is the local economic development group, hopefully to be a main street in the next couple of years, has elected a board. I'm on the board by bylaws as the representative for the village of Los Ranchos, that you all supported me in, so thank you for that. But the 5 business owners that were elected to join the board, there were 7 people that put their names in and 2 write-ins, so 9 people. We asked for the top 5 to be voted. It went to all business owners that had a business in the village to be able to vote via email. And it came out to Nick Stafford with Sadie's of New Mexico, Jim Scholl, Hops Brewery, Carrie Peel for Color Wheel Toys, Ross Bird, Busy Bee Frozen Custard, and Andrea Maloney with Higher Health and Wellness. So they will be the representatives of the Main Street Board. And so kind of the way it's going to work is they're going to be the ones, the board will be determining what 3 projects to kind of bring forth to then become an accredited Main Street. And they will be championing Magda as their executive director. So Magda's gonna have 6 bosses that she will report to. And so the goal is to transition the existing board, which was of myself, Sky, and Kim, were the original kind of 3. Now that we have an elected board, transition the power over to them, and then really start running with meetings. And my goal is to really be able to bring back more information to you all when Trustee Benavides asks questions, what do the business community think of this? To have answers and responses, and have our finger on the pulse of what's really going on the Main Street. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So real exciting news.
Yeah, I would just echo that. That's great stuff. I think the one thing I would ask Magda, and I think the trustees all have met Magda, is that right?
We have.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, let's introduce Magda Baca, who is the interim executive director. We have her, again, with the funds that were available by Bernalillo County to help us organize and get everything structured, especially when we threw this project on her lap for the Globitos. And she's working with Maria Rinaldi on that, just so you all know who's helping coordinate that, because she knows 4th Street more intimately than any of us because of her work on the project. But Magda will help, get the board moving and, and coordinating. There's a lot of coordination with the state that needs to happen. But also importantly, I think for all of us is coordination with all of us so that we can make sure that we're providing these businesses, the support that they need. And as I think Trustee Kiefer said, there's a stepping process with the state to get certified as a Main Street, and that's these projects that they're undertaking. And so we have a couple of ideas on some projects that we'll present to Magda and to Jennifer that maybe they might adopt a couple. But anyway, I think it's a great opportunity, again, to really harness the enthusiasm and move forward. So thank you very much. Anything else, Trustee Kiefer?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, we go now to Mr. Benavides.
All right. I still would like to see at some point, not an urgent thing, a presentation from Maria Rinaldi about the 4th Street project and where we are with that.
Can we put that on the agenda for next meeting? That'd be great. I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, tonight would not, we had a heavy meeting tonight. It would not have been good, but when we have a lighter meeting, yes.
Okay.
And we ought to have some conversations about the Anderson House, right? And there's a lot of ideas floating around. And my idea is to make it like an agricultural center of excellence, right? Where professors can come and if they're on sabbatical or whatever, and do work here. But there might be other great ideas that other people have that we should consider. But it could be a fun thing to think about and see if we can all come up with a great idea for what to do with that Anderson House. Finally, I want to point out to the public that in our packet, there is a presentation about the levy, right? And there's some technical stuff, but there's some good illustrations in there that I think the public should look at. And one in particular, you can see a map, and you see it's color-coded in terms of priority. I mean, it extends to the north and the south of the village of Los Ranchos, and you can see low, medium, and high priority, and just and what the levy looks like, and there's a cross section of an illustration again of the different functions, the things that need to be built into the levy. So if you want to educate yourself on that presentation is there. And that's all I have.
All right, Trustee Ranovich.
I'll try to be brief, Mayor. One of those maps that scared me was the one that showed the floodplain beyond the levee if the levees were ever to be breached, because it shows blue over a large swath of Los Ranchos. So there's that.
So I recall somebody telling me the last great flood we had, it went up to the railroad tracks. And there was a natural barrier there. Yeah.
Man, that must have been a while ago. Yeah. I wanted to first thank the village for the work that you did on Guadalupe Trail between El Pueblo and Ranchitos. It was a really smooth project, and those guys were just great that did it. My street empties onto Guadalupe Trail right there. So I was just very impressed with Albuquerque Asphalt and the project they did and how quickly they were able to do it and how smooth they made the road, and it was really great. So thanks. The other thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit is water. I brought this up once before. I've been in the water conservation, I've been a water conservation advocate, and our firm does a lot of water conservation work for the last 30 years. And we had a really good meeting at the Ag Committee last month, and I learned that David Montoya is also interested in planting trees around the village to kind of re-tree the village, we're one of the hot spots in the city, in the metropolitan area, for heat sink, for urban heat island. And it's partially because we have a lot of fields, but it's also because a lot of the cottonwoods that are dying are not being replaced. And so ways to do that on Rio Grande is the street I keep talking about in the past here, is by having a tree planting program that would also use a green stormwater infrastructure approach that would take the water from those puddles we all see when it rains and put it to good use by watering trees that are along the edges of our roads. And I've talked to the mayor about this, and I think we need to continue looking at that. The other thing that struck me this week is that, and I apologize, I always think of design kinds of things and planning kinds of things, but the mayor and I had a conversation months ago about some of those dead cottonwoods on Rio Grande Boulevard, and I thought, and the mayor brought up the idea of maybe having some of them carved into some kind of artwork. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we did some work with these trees and the green stormwater infrastructure to feed them, but also take some of those cottonwoods and other trees that have died along Rio Grande and turn it into this kind of triptych of artwork that follows down Rio Grande Boulevard too, all being about trees and about water and about the cottonwoods that define who the village is. It's right up there on that logo, which we might want to consider working on at some point. Anyway,
You heard it here first.
Say what?
I said, we've talked about that internally, so I'm glad you mentioned it.
Good. So anyway, I'm just throwing out an idea that I'd like to see grow. Oh, the one other thing about the cottonwoods, if we choose to go there on Rio Grande at some point, I did talk to Tree New Mexico about this. And Tree New Mexico, I talked to one of their board members, and they would very much like to be part of that. And they supply trees to municipalities like ours for free, and even organize planting campaigns. Right. So that could be part of this whole kind of retreeing of the village beyond Rio Grande even. So just some thoughts.
All right, well, those are, I think, really good ideas. Go ahead, Trustee.
Yeah, I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago now. We had the grand opening for the legislature, for the legislative office here in the village.
Oh.
And they are available both day and
Katie.
yeah, are available. I believe their office hours are on Tuesdays, but they invite residents to come by and talk with them. And if you can, to make an appointment before you do so. But it's located right here on the village property. They'd very much like to meet you and to talk about issues that you may have that they need to take to the legislature.
Thank you very much, and that is a good point. That is worthwhile. Again, our legislators that predominantly represent the village have offices here at Village Hall to take obviously some opportunities to visit with the community. With that, look, I will just say, I know that tonight's agenda was a lot, and I appreciate all of your patience and support. Look, I think we've got some opportunities to do some really amazing things for our community, and I do appreciate the support you all have provided. So with that, we have no other business. Is that right, Danielle? Correct. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. We are adjourned. The time is 9:24.
Well, we got through a lot.
One day we'll be saying we've been through a lot.
So are you
Yes.